here over the last several hours. And of course, that water, once the storm surge starts to come in, all that water is going to come back. It's going to come back hard. And the flooding, the potential flooding here in Tampa is a major concern. I just talked to the mayor a short time ago. A year ago, he had warned of the effects of a Cat 3 storm directly hitting Tampa, something they haven't seen since 1921. He warned about the potential of 15 feet of water in downtown Tampa by City Hall. Again, that is going to be happening. Whatever water comes in, it's going to be happening in the darkness, in the nighttime hours. And Chad Myers, the Weather Center, that storm surge that we can expect here in Tampa and that people in Naples can expect, and in Fort Myers, it's going to be happening most likely in the darkness, and often, and correct me if I'm wrong here, hours after some of the biggest, the strongest hurricane force winds have come through.
No question about it. The surge will happen when you think the storm is over, because we're on the wrong side of what we always think about hurricane landfall. We're on the west side of an island or a peninsula, whatever. We're typically talking about an East Coast landfall, and the surge comes in with the eye. The eye is going to go by, suck out all the water, and then the wind is going to get calm, and then the wind is going to blow back here at 120 miles per hour. And when it blows back, it's going to blow back all of that water that's now just piling up offshore. It's called a very shallow area, kind of a shoal out there. There's a lot of sand. You can go on a boat for 40 miles before you actually find any depth out here. All kind of sand. That shallowness will push that water quickly back up in Tampa as the storm goes by. And yes, you're thinking, oh, this is finally over. But if you are by the water in Tampa, it is not over. Now, let's go back to what the mayor said. A direct hit by a Cat 3. What does that look like? A direct hit by a Cat 3 comes in off the Gulf of Mexico and slams into Pinellas County or something like that, so that the spin of the storm pushes all the water into Tampa. That is not what we're seeing here. This is not a direct hit. This is not a 15-foot surge. Our storm is coming in this direction. So we're going to push all the water out, then we're going to push it back in, but only 5 to 8 feet. And I think that's still a very good number. And the mayor was correct. If the storm is slightly offshore, then all of a sudden we could get more pushback and get a bigger number than 5 to 8. But right now, I think that's still a fairly good number. Now, down here in Naples and Fort Myers, 5 to 8 is not the right number. You guys, especially from Cape Coral, Punta Gorda southward, you're 10. And if you get south into the Everglades or close to it, you're 15. You need to get out of the way of this storm. Marco Island, I know there are people hanging out on that island. I don't get it. You need to be off there before it's too late. There's a long bridge, and at some point in time, that window is going to stop. You're not going to be able to get off the island at all. But, you know, the entire island is going to be covered up in water. There's just not going to be any roadway that's not wet with salt water. And then if you're in a high rise, and I know that's where people are staying, all your equipment downstairs is going to be wet. Everything electrical, everything HVAC, everything that you need to really be comfortable is going to be wrecked. And then you're still going to be on the island and you may not be able to get off. So that's all West Coast, because that's where the next focus is. Right now, the East Coast is still getting pounded, and that's where all of our reporters are seeing the surge into Miami, into Fort Lauderdale, all the way up the coast, anywhere along the intercoastal waterway. That's what's getting water now. If it's 2 to 3 feet, I think everybody can handle it. When it gets, in some spots will get 6 feet, then all of a sudden there's water in everything. Anderson.
Yeah, Chad, we want to start checking in with those reporters on the east coast of Florida. Brian Todd is standing by in West Palm Beach. Brian, how are things there?
Anderson, we're getting pounded with some of the early stages of hurricane force winds here. We're now in the window in the next several hours where we're going to really get the most intense storm surge that this area is probably going to see. The storm surge is just allowing the water in the intercoastal waterway to pound up against that walkway there. And the mayor of West Palm Beach, I just talked to her on the phone, Jerry Moyo, she told me she's really concerned about flooding because the storm surge is going to come up a couple of feet at least. It's going to probably inundate this area with water. She's worried about this drive, Flagler Drive, getting flooded. There is some water over here, and the wind intensity has really picked up in the last like 15 minutes. These palm trees behind me are starting to get compromised. There's one over here that's leaning badly, and palm fronds and coconuts are becoming projectiles. They're starting to fly all over the place here. Just below it, you see these street signs wobbling, and even these sturdy stanchions behind me that have the street lights on them, they're starting to wobble a little bit, so that's a real concern. I also just spoke to a local fire chief who said that basically we're in the window now where people call 911. They're not going to be able to come out and get them. It's just too dangerous for the first responders. That chief also told me, he said there's a big concern about the construction cranes, like the one in Miami that snapped or at least cracked. There's one over here. The chief assured me that these are secured, that the tops of them are pulling with the wind. So they're supposed to do that. They're supposed to go around like a weather vane. They are pulling with the wind. He said they're in good shape, and he wants to reassure people of that. And he wanted to clarify something on our air. I think one of the experts said that we had said that people hadn't evacuated these buildings next to the cranes. Well, some people did evacuate. They were under a voluntary evacuation notice. Some of them got out, some of them did not. But the people who did not, who live in these apartment buildings, have told us they are now concerned that these cranes may hit their apartment buildings. But one of the assistant fire chiefs just told me right now they're confident they're going to stay in place. Anderson.
Brian, I appreciate that. And you know, in a place like Tampa, and really in a lot of cities in Florida, they've seen such a real estate boom over the last couple of years. There are cranes everywhere. I mean, even here in Tampa, right by the Hillsborough River, we have two cranes over here, and they weren't expecting as big a storm as is going to be hitting Tampa. I assume those have been secured as best they can. Obviously, something a lot of people who live around here, who have stayed around here, are going to continue to watch because there are a lot of people who have stayed in some of these buildings. There's some high-rise buildings here. They're off, you know, they're above 15 feet or so, above 20 feet. They feel pretty confident. We've talked to a lot of people. There are a lot of people who are walking around right now because as one of the outer bands of the storm has passed by, the rain has really stopped. It's pretty calm. People are trying to walk their dogs, stretch their legs because they've been hunkered down in their homes. But again, they know what is coming. So does Chris Cuomo, who is down in Naples. Chris, you know, Chad was on just a second ago talking about potential storm surge, and Naples really is facing that potential of 10 to 15 feet of storm surge.
And that freaky phenomenon of the water getting sucked out by that, you know, that counterclockwise force, where on the East Coast, the east part of the storm, the water's getting dumped back in, and the energy's coming from the west side, you know, the left side of the storm. We saw that here. The water level has gone out. And Anderson, while I have you, that Project Phoenix about what could happen in Tampa Bay, that is some really startling stuff about the vulnerabilities of where you are in the development and water level and how the infrastructure is so old. A lot of those principles apply here. Everything has changed here, my friend. The difference in those like 200 miles between the two of us right now, this is all headed your way, of course, but it's really different here now. We're in that snap, crackle, and pop phase, you know, where the trees are starting to come down, the transformers are doing their thing, and you get in that eerie sequence of noises where you're trying to figure out what it is that's getting softened up so you can calculate where to be and what's going to happen. I've been watching a couple of trees just went down away from us, and you're facing this way, and then you like get hit by a little bit of whatever's flying around on this side. So we're getting into that phase, but Naples hasn't seen anything yet in terms of what the major risks are for where we are, and even more significantly where you are.
Yeah, the Project Phoenix report, which Chris referenced, just for our viewers who aren't familiar with it, that was a report done kind of to predict the effects, I believe it was of a Cat 5 storm hitting Tampa. But again, even a Cat 3 storm is not something anybody who lives here in Tampa, who grew up here in Tampa, has ever seen before. 1921 was the last time a major storm like that hit directly in Tampa. As Chris, as you know, Hurricane Charlie back in 2004 was expected to come here. It turned at the last minute and really decimated Punta Gorda. There are a lot of concerns here, and the mayor has voiced them time and time again about the effects of flooding, about the effects of storm surge, even when there are heavy rains in Tampa, in St. Petersburg, in this area around Tampa Bay. They have problems with flooding, and over the years, the level of Tampa Bay has just naturally increased. So as those higher winds come in, there's more water in Tampa Bay now than in previous decades to come inland in part of that storm surge. So there's certainly a lot of concern, and it's justifiable concern. I mean, we don't want to make things sound worse than they're going to be, but this is not a storm that anybody here in Tampa, unless they have lived somewhere else or Cat 3 has hit, has seen, and nobody has seen what it might do to this city, to Clearwater, to Hillsborough. You got to keep in mind there are some 700 miles of coastline around Tampa Bay. It's an extraordinarily beautiful area, and a lot of homes are built up very, very close to the water, not very raised up, not very high elevation off the water. So there's a lot of concern about what's going to happen, even where the mayor has a house in Davis Islands, which is just south of here by the Hillsborough River, by Hillsborough Bay. He said that his home might be destroyed. I mean, if there was a significant storm surge, his home might be swamped. We're going to take a short break, and our coverage continues.
Now you can win $1,000 a day for life from Publishers Clearinghouse. Are you serious? We are serious. About $1,000 a day, every day, for life. Go to PCH.com and enter. October 13th, you can win $1,000 a day for life.
Now you can have everything. And your family can too. One of America's safest crossovers, well equipped for under $24,000. Come in now and get $2,000 cash back or 0% APR for 72 months on the 2017 Outlander.
When you have type 2 diabetes, there's a moment of truth. And now with Victoza, a better moment of proof. Victoza lowers my A1C and blood sugar better than the leading branded pill, which didn't get me to my goal.
Lowers my A1C better than the leading branded injectable, the one I used to take. Victoza lowers blood sugar in 3 ways.
And while it isn't for weight loss, Victoza may help you lose some weight. Non-insulin Victoza comes in a pen and is taken once a day.
Victoza is not recommended as the first medication to treat diabetes, and it's not for people with type 1 diabetes or
Fecha a Bazar edição de primavera, de 22 a 24 de setembro, aqui no Senacom. Se joga!
Thyroid cancer, multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if you are allergic to Victoza or any of its ingredients. Stop taking Victoza and call your doctor right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, or if you develop any allergic symptoms including itching, rash, or difficulty breathing. Serious side effects may happen, including pancreatitis. So stop taking Victoza and call your doctor right away if you have severe pain in your stomach area. Tell your doctor your medical history. Taking Victoza with a sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar. The most common side effects are headache, nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting. Side effects can lead to dehydration, which may cause kidney problems.
Now's the time for a better moment of proof. Ask your doctor about Victoza.
So, tell us your big idea for getting the whole country booking on choicehotels.com.
4 words. Bada book, bada boom. Let it sink in.
Shouldn't we say we have the lowest price?
Nope. Bada book, bada boom.
Have you ever stayed with Choice Hotels, like at a Comfort Inn?
Yep. Free waffles. Can't go wrong.
I like it.
Promote that guy.
Get the lowest price on our rooms, guaranteed. When you book direct at choicehotels.com. Book now.
Register today at Elite Singles, where you'll benefit from 100% verified profiles, an extensive personality test, and tailored matches in your area. EliteSingles.com. Never more ready to fall in love again.
When you schedule with Safe Flight Autoglass, you get time for more life. This family wanted to keep the game going.
Hey, Mom, one more game?
With Safe Flight, you get a text when we're on our way. You can see exactly when we'll arrive.
Sure. Bring it. Get it.
I'm Michael with Safe Flight.
Thanks for coming. It's right over here.
Giving you a few more minutes for what matters most.
Take care. Bye. Safe Flight Repair, Safe Flight Replace.
This new Buffalo grain-free. It's so healthy. Got farm-raised chicken. That's some really good chicken. I don't think I've ever tasted chicken like this. What? Here come the accents. Blueberries and pumpkin. Wow, that was my favorite bite so far. I'm not even kidding. I mean, that was spinach. That's like 3 superfoods. It's pretty, well, super. Now I got kind of a pumpkin chicken thing going. Look, time to wrestle.
New Beneful grain-free. Out with the grain, in with the farm-raised chicken. Healthful, flavorful, Beneful.
All right, John Berman in Miami right now, standing in the middle of Hurricane Irma, which has been striking Florida now for what feels like days. It's really been since last night when we felt the force of this storm starting to come onshore. The eye wall passed over the Florida Keys at about 9 o'clock this morning, and it's just been pounding the entire southern part of the peninsula now for hours. And our Chad Myers says we can expect these tropical storm force winds here, really hurricane force winds here in Miami for several more hours. And the impact is being felt in very, very specific and dangerous ways now. Number one, there was a crane collapse in downtown Miami on Biscayne Boulevard, 300. A crane collapsed. The boom fell down there. There have been pictures of that. We do not know how safe that area is. Authorities have warned people not to go anywhere near it. And then there is the storm surge. Brickell Avenue. A lot of people know Brickell Avenue right now covered in water. They had predicted 3 to 6 feet of storm surge. Our Chad Myers says the number is at 5.5. That 5.5 has been enough to flood part of the downtown area right now. That part of the downtown area, we should note, was part of the mandatory evacuation zone. So this is exactly what they feared might happen, exactly what they predicted might happen. All right, right now what I want to do is I want to go down to the Florida Keys. Our Bill Weir has been in the Keys for days right now. Bill, we have not heard from you in a couple hours. I was concerned. I just asked our producer to check on you. Give me a sense of what's happening in Key Largo, Bill.
I appreciate the concern, Johnny, but yeah, we just came down to find a safer spot. We were getting a little worried about where we were. We were getting awful wet. We were decided to try to leave the high-speed car wash if we could. So we found a little better bunker in the center of this condominium community here on I guess the west side of Key Largo. This is the top of the Keys, the upper Keys. What we're really worried about, and meanwhile, I mean, the winds here are sustained 60, 70 miles an hour. We're seeing 80 and 90 mile an hour gusts, trees down everywhere. As you can see, it's no wonder the power went out so quickly last night. But what we're really worried about are the lower Keys. People go down there because it is low key. We're having audio issues. Take it back to John.
All right, Bill Weir in Key Largo. I confess, Bill, I was having a hard time making out exactly what you're saying, but I take it as good news that you're saying anything at all right now. I'm pleased to hear your voice down in Key Largo where you've been riding out this storm. The eye wall did pass the Florida Keys, about 70 miles from where Bill is right now. Key Largo, one of the northernmost Keys. The eye wall passed much further south than that. Our thanks to Bill for being there for us. Now to Rosa Flores, who is in downtown Miami, seeing this storm surge firsthand. Rosa, what are you seeing?
John, both the storm surge and ponding is what we're seeing here in Brickell, which is the financial district. Just to give you a lay of the land, I'm right next to the Publix grocery store for those people who are familiar. The street now completely ponded, and as you mentioned, we're seeing a double punch. First of all, the ocean coming onto land. I'm probably about 3 to 4 streets from the ocean. The ocean is to my left. We're seeing that come onto land, and then of course the ponding on these streets, because a lot of the debris that's been flying around is now blocking those drains. Now I'm going to pan the camera over here so you can see what it looks like closer to the ocean. This is in the direction of the ocean. We're seeing a lot of that water come in. Before we moved to this location, there was a building whose first floor was already taking in that water, the surge. That lower floor where usually, it's usually a dock where they park some vehicles, was taking on water. Why? Because the ocean comes onto land in these types of conditions. We're also seeing wind gusts. We're seeing wind tunnels because this is the downtown area, because there are high rises here. Now, we've also seen people who did not evacuate, even though people were told to evacuate in this area. Some of them walking around, others driving around. One of them speeding down the water that was right next to our live position. Not recommended according to first responders. Now, John, there is a drainage system that is designed to drain water out here at this hour, being tested both by surge and ponding water. John?
That's right, not to mention all the debris that is clogging those drains right now. Rosie, you gave great advice. Don't try to drive through the flooded streets. It is the worst thing you can do. You simply cannot tell how deep the water is. Again, you know, if you haven't evacuated, if you've chosen to stay at home, stay inside, especially in the Miami area right now. Ride out this storm, and if you have evacuated, don't try to get home. Not yet. Still too dangerous. The first responders won't even go out right now because the winds are too strong at this point. Hurricane Irma battering southern Florida right now. Miami getting the worst of it as we stand here, but the storm moving up the west coast very soon. Naples next in the target. Stay with CNN special live coverage of Hurricane Irma. We'll be right back.
We always were told we were German. We were in a German dance group. I wore lederhosen, so I just started poking around on Ancestry. Then I decided to have my DNA tested through Ancestry DNA. It turns out I'm Scottish, so I traded in my lederhosen for a kilt.
Fries for 316, please. Thank you.
David, what's going on? Oh, hey. That's it? Yeah.
Everybody, 2 seconds.
Dear Sebastian, after careful consideration of your application, it is with great pleasure that we offer our congratulations on your acceptance.
Through the Tuition Assistance Program, every day, McDonald's helps more people go to college. It's part of our commitment to being America's best first job.
At Custom Ink, you can create custom t-shirts and other great products for all of life's events. Get free shipping and on-time delivery, guaranteed. Start today at CustomInk.com.
Men, after 40, you have a choice. Live with less drive and more fat, or get Ageless Male, the #1 best-selling testosterone booster. With over 4 million bottles sold. Ageless Male. More confidence, more libido, more testosterone.
My name is Brian. I'm proud to make Dog Chow in Davenport, Iowa. Dog Chow has been a part of my family's life for over 40 years. My grandfather made it, and now I'm making it. As a microbiologist, I ensure that Dog Chow leads with high-quality ingredients.
When only the best will do, one-of-a-kind Tempur-Pedic delivers. Only Tempur material precisely conforms to your weight, shape, and temperature. It provides up to twice as much pressure-relieving power, so you won't toss and turn. And Tempur-Pedic is the best at minimizing motion transfer from your partner. You'll wake up feeling like a champion. Now through September 17th, save up to $500 on select adjustable sets. Find your exclusive retailer at Tempur-Pedic.com.
T-Mobile's Unlimited now includes Netflix on Us. That's right, Netflix on Us. Get 4 unlimited lines for just $40 each, taxes and fees included. And now, Netflix included. So go ahead, binge on Us. Another reason why T-Mobile is America's best unlimited network.
I've hitched a ride with outlaws, gathered with Satanists, and fired a few rounds with an armed militia. But this is my most revealing season yet. This is life.
New season starts Sunday, October 1st on CNN.
Caitlin drew this today. It's called Daddy on DirecTV.
I love the little sticky things.
Oh, no, I put those there just to cover the...
Oh, wow, that's some rough language. I would never say any of these words out loud.
Good to know.
Even though DirecTV now says they're $10 a month, it's not. You can't get it without their wireless plan, so it's 10 times more than they say. And there's no NFL network.
I just can't have this on the wall. No, obviously.
Of course not.
Misleading offers are evil.
Makes the other kids cry.
Spectrum doesn't have them. DirecTV bad. Spectrum good.
I'm leaving you, Wesley.
But why?
You haven't noticed me in 2 years.
I was in a coma.
Well, I still deserve appreciation.
Who was there for you when you had amnesia?
Well, you know I can't remember that.
Stop this madness. If it's appreciation you want, you should both get Snapshot from Progressive. It rewards good drivers with big discounts on car insurance.
I have news. I've used most of our cellular data.
Oh, come on, Susan Lucci!
Legion of Brothers premieres September 24th on CNN. Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
We offer a free book on mesothelioma. Call for the free book and receive so much more. Call 1-800-831-3700.
Well, we are dealing with an unfortunate reality here in Naples, Florida. That's the West Coast, the particularly vulnerable coast. Places like this already very low to the water, already spongy, can't take much flood waters, storm surge, and that's exactly what we're going to get. The water has been sucking out. That's how a hurricane works. As those winds move counterclockwise, it gives on one side, it takes away on the other. So all this water is going to come back and then some. That's the concern here. It has picked up remarkably in the last hour. We're getting gusts here reported 70 miles an hour and in excess, and we're in what they call, when you chase storms, the snap, crackle, and pop phase here in Naples. You're starting to hear sounds of things fail. Branches, trees, transformers. And you start looking around to figure out where they're coming from so you know where the danger is. A lot of trees are down here. There's a lot of debris, but we're worried about a higher level of damage. So let's get to Chad Myers right now. Chad, the simple question is, what happened? We were expecting this some hours from now, and all of a sudden, it's pretty close to what we're seeing in Miami in the main. I mean, it has gotten much worse here, much snottier in very quick time.
And expect it to almost double from there. I mean, that's what this major hurricane means to you, Chris. You just had a wind gust to 71. Wind gusts there may be 120. Now, the force of 120 is more than double the force of 70. I know the numbers aren't double, but it's a force that is multiplied by itself. It is wind speed squared. And so you really have to expect what's going on there. The water near Chris now 4.5 feet below where it should be, and it's going to come rushing back as soon as that eye gets by. There goes the eye right through Sarasota and Tampa, and then maybe even up towards St. Mark's. That I was there for the flood for Ivan. Here comes the storm, though, coming on shore right now near Everglades City. Again, a second landfall. The first one was Cudjoe Key in the lower Keys, just to the east of Key West. There is the spin of the storm right now, pushing the water away from Naples, pushing the water away from Tampa, but that will end as soon as the eye goes by. Now, Tampa, you still have about 8 hours or so before that eye goes by. But this is now the high-res forecast radar. Significant rain and stormy weather, winds to 90. Just had a 91-mile-per-hour gust in Miami Airport. And so that's still going to happen for the next few hours. Move you ahead 3 hours. The storm spins, and Naples is in the eye. So Chris Cuomo will see wind at 120 going from east to west. We'll wait a while. It'll go to 0. And then it'll come from the other direction at about 100 miles per hour. So what's blowing one way will then get knocked around and get picked up and blown the other way as debris. And that's going to be Sarasota, for Venice, for Tampa. Same story. You all get inside the eye. So the wind goes, does its damage. The wind stops and then comes back around. Even though there's not much wind here, there's still going to be damaging wind speeds, at least 90 miles per hour on the backside of that. Chris, you have a question.
Yeah, the storm surge, Chad, thank you for explaining that exchange of energy and that phenomenon of pulling the water out. Yes. But do me a favor, try to quantify what that return will look like in terms of how far it could go from where it usually is inshore. Are we talking 100 feet in, a couple of blocks in? You know, like how far in will people have to look at standing water, and how long can it be around?
It's all about the topography of where you live. If you're on a very sharp angle to the water, it may only come back 1 or 2 blocks, but there's no real mountains there. There's nothing elevated there. It is going to spread inland for city blocks and maybe miles before it finally stops. As the storm goes by, the winds change direction, and this is what the Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center, has been so concerned about. In fact, they gave us a personal phone call and said, we want you to stress this. This is it. Yes, things will get knocked down with the wind, but the surge will kill people. And they wanted everyone to know that. This is the real deal. 10 to 15 feet on top of what should be mean sea level, which means for Chris, that could be 19 feet higher than it is now because it's already 4 feet down because the wind's blowing the wrong way. Anderson, this is a major event for Marco, for Sanibel, for Punta Gorda, where we were years ago, all the way through Naples, Fort Myers, and the like. Big-time water hitting places that have never been wet before.
You know, and Chad, I keep thinking about that there's the storm surge, which is the rise of the water, but then depending on the force of the winds, there can be waves on top of that, correct?
Absolutely. The waves will come in from the ocean off the Gulf of Mexico at about 90 miles per hour. Now, we know that the wind at Naples may be 128, but that will be from the east. The backside of the eye never recovered from hitting Cuba. And I guess we're going to, you know, thank some stars for America, but we're going to have to help Cuba because they got hit by a 160-mile-per-hour Cat 5 that took the stuffing out of this storm. That's why we're not talking 160, we're talking 125. Big difference in power, big difference in damage. The northern part of the Cuban Keys were really destroyed from this storm, taking the energy from Irma, putting it onto Cuba proper, and taking that energy damage away from America. It finally moves on up to Albany and Macon and the like, and we will have hurricane wind gusts even here in Atlanta. I know that seems ridiculous because everybody left and went to Atlanta or Charlotte or Williamsburg, someplace like that up to the north, and the winds will be strong here and also in Birmingham. Anderson.
All right, Chad, appreciate that. It's really nice to get that level of detail because that is what people all throughout this region are looking for now, trying to absorb every detail, every data point they can to help them make decisions. I want to go to Miguel Marquez, who is in Punta Gorda. He was there yesterday as well for us. Obviously, Punta Gorda, you know, it's so interesting to be in Tampa and talk about Punta Gorda because, Miguel, back in 2004 when Hurricane Charlie was coming up, it was supposed to hit Tampa. Then it went changed about, I think it was about 4 degrees, ended up turning and hitting Punta Gorda and really decimating that town. What are the concerns there now, and just what is the environment like right now there?
Yeah, well, what we are seeing right now, you will be seeing very shortly. The winds here are about 40 miles per hour. They are sustained. They are gusting up into the 50s. We're seeing some of the worst weather we've seen so far. It is shelter in place for Charlotte County. And you guys they were just talking about sort of the wind effect on the bays and on the water here. I want to show you this. 2 boats, you think they're floating? They're not. Move in there. You can see these are actually in mud now. This is the Peace River and the bay right next to Punta Gorda. If you come over to the right here, you can see how much of the bay is actually exposed. And all of that is just low-lying water on mud, essentially. And that is blowing across the mud, and all that water is going out. So what goes out must come back in eventually, and they are expecting things a little bit better here. They're expecting the winds to top out at about 110 miles an hour in Punta Gorda, with gusts up to 135, so a little better than we were yesterday. They're also expecting the storm surge to be a little bit lower, 5 to 8 feet, but they're saying there could be 3 feet of water. That's not up to here, 3 feet of water across certain parts of Charlotte County. This is the bay, and you get a very good sense of just how powerful this storm is and where it's blowing. Look how much of the floor of the river, of the Peace River here, has been exposed by the wind blowing this storm out. Once that eye wall passes here and it starts blowing up the other way, then they'll have that storm surge here and things will get even worse. But right now, very sustained winds here, and it's only going to get worse. We're about 40 miles an hour at the moment. It will get up to 90 to 110 miles an hour, gusting up to 135 in this area. So we are now battening down and hunkering down for the duration. Anderson?
Miguel, we're going to check in with you. Be careful out there. And again, for people a little bit north of where Miguel is in Punta Gorda and where Chris Cuomo is here in Tampa and elsewhere, a lot of that storm surge may be coming in the darkness late at night, which makes it all the more scary. You don't get a sense of what's coming. It's very hard to see what's coming, and especially with those hurricane force winds whipping at that time of night. We're going to take a short break, and our special coverage of Hurricane Irma continues in a moment.
Why are you checking your credit score?
Just want to see if it changed.
Credit scores don't change that much, do they?
Really?
I'll take it. Sir, your credit. I better check my credit score.
Try Credit Karma. It's free.
Credit Karma. Get knowing.
Welcome to the no pressure zone. Carl, have you met everyone? You see, time is just a construct of human perception, an illusion, like this one.
Help! I can't breathe!
Which means there's no pressure to get a great rate on a hotel. They're available for an unlimited time, always. So book now, or don't. No pressure.
If you're 50 or over, what comes to mind when you think about healthcare? Understanding your options? Or if you're getting the care you need? At AARPadvantages.com, you can find helpful information about healthcare options, leaving you more time to think about more important things, like not having to think about healthcare at all. Surround yourself with healthy advantages at AARPadvantages.com/health.
Bachelor party pad. I'm thinking beachfront for sure.
Yeah, but no sand. That stuff gets everywhere.
So then a pool with a jacuzzi.
Yeah, an octagon for fighting.
Yeah, an octagon.
If you can get piggy with your bro weekend, why not get piggy with your TV?
Introducing a la carte TV, only from Sling. Start at $20 a month. Then pick your personal channel on it and save.
They don't have an octagon. I'll keep looking.
Go to slingtv.com and start watching 7 days free.
Hi, I'm Jesse. And I'm Ben. We started Hubble because contact lenses are too expensive. At Hubble, our fresh daily contacts are affordable and delivered straight to you. Get your first 2 weeks free at HubbleContacts.com.
If you just sign that first
I'm
one
so
there.
sorry. I don't feel comfortable signing that.
I don't get the math here.
Was this the same car we talked about?
What's this dealer preparation?
I'm so sorry. This just is not
What we talked about.
Get the car without the car salesman. Carvana.com. The better way to buy a car.
Guys, I really love what you've done with the place.
Thanks. Yeah, still needs a little bit of work. You guys don't happen to know a good handyman, do you? We might know someone. Outstanding. Could you possibly get a background check on them?
Just to be safe. Also, get a bunch of quotes. Check all the reviews and match us with the best pros for the job.
And book an appointment for, say, next Tuesday at 9?
10's better, babe.
Perfect. Who wants a burger?
You can't expect your neighbors to do everything Home Advisor can. So to find and instantly book a background-checked home pro for free, just ask Home Advisor.
Heather is trying to learn French online.
I drink goat milk at the library.
Janice is succeeding with Babbel. With 14 languages, Babbel gets you conversational fast for real-life situations. You'll be speaking with confidence in no time.
2 croissants, s'il vous plaît.
D'accord. And for you? The octopus wants to date me.
Babbel, start your conversations. Download the app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free today.
Hello. Let's go for a ride on a Peloton. Let's go grab a couple thousand friends and chase each other up a hill. Let's go make a personal best, then beat it with your personal better than best. Let's go bring the world's best instructors right to you. Better yet, let's go bring the entire New York studio live. Let's go anytime, anywhere, with anyone who's willing. And let's go do it all right here. Ready to go? Peloton.
Our coverage of Hurricane Irma continues. I'm here in Tampa. Chris Cuomo is in Naples. Chris, obviously the weather system that you are getting, as you were saying, it may be moving up here to Tampa shortly. It's pretty slow moving at this point. But folks in Tampa really have not seen the kind of weather that you're getting right now, and obviously have not seen anything close to what people in Miami have been experiencing so far, Chris.
Well, and as Chad explained, things have changed. I mean, we've just been getting so much rain for so long, and then it intensified about an hour ago. Literally, the weather equipment failed. The jacket I had on, it was just, all it was extra weight. It was no longer holding out any moisture. So looking for a little bit of an upgrade, trying to get one of the producers to be generous and make a swap. No takers yet. But what we've seen here is that the gusts are now getting close to what they're seeing in Miami. And the concern is that there's a lot worse to come here with Irma, and what will happen when things have been made vulnerable. We're losing some trees, but others are being pushed to their break point. Different parts of structures are being tested and weakened. So what will happen when this storm surge that Chad's talking about, when that comes back? And when these much more powerful winds, you heard him say, Anderson, he believes that the effective force of the winds that we're going to get in a few hours will be twice what we're getting now. That's the big concern.
Yeah, I want to go to Miami, where Peter Zaleski, who's a business owner, is there. Peter, I'm wondering, how are things for you in terms of what you and what have you been seeing in your area in Miami?
Well, Anderson, what I can tell you is right now in the streets, and I'm in downtown Miami. I'm probably about a good 1,000 feet, maybe 2,000 feet directly from Biscayne Bay. Biscayne Bay is about ready to breach some of the seawalls that are in and around here. On the actual street level, it's probably about 2 foot deep or so. It's well past the grill of a regular traditional automobile. And in terms of winds, it's probably 70 to 80s plus, and then you're getting bursts. You can see it in the windows when the windows start to get pushed in. And a lot of the trees are bending, and they have been bending for quite some time.
The location you're in, is it a new construction? Because, it's one of the things we've been talking about is in the wake of Andrew, building codes were really upgraded, particularly for any new construction in South Florida.
It is a brand new building. It was constructed in 2013, came online. The developer had the foresight to go forward and actually build it. So it's almost as if you're starting on the second floor. So the first floor is where the parking garage is and where you enter the building, for the most part for visitors, is going to be on that second floor. So think of what you'll see in the Keys, or think about what you'll see in certain parts which flood a lot. Effectively, that ground floor is basically just dedicated towards parking. And, and when the water recedes, then you can sort of clean up and go back to normal. So they did take those advantages or those steps, and they also they put in place some pretty strong stringent glass panes, and so far they seem to be holding up, but I'm not sure if it'll continue, but I have some confidence, and I'm here.
And in terms of supplies, I mean, people have been told to have about 3 days worth. I assume you have stocked up.
Well, unfortunately enough, I went vegetarian, so I have a lot of beans and rice laying around, so I tended to cook up some of that, throw some spice in there, and I'm not worried. The only thing I'm worried about is probably gaining weight.
Well, if that's your only concern, then you're in very good shape. Obviously, here in Tampa, which has not seen this level of storm in nearly 100 years, 1921 was a storm which really decimated this area. And obviously, back then the city was not anywhere close to the development that we have seen now. But there's real concern about the buildings, their ability to deal with the level of flooding that may occur here. Peter, I appreciate talking to you in Miami. Certainly wish you the best in the days ahead. Our coverage continues from points all across southern Florida, from the west coast to the east coast. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
When you schedule with Safe Flight Auto Glass, you get time for more life. This family wanted to keep the game going.
Hey, Mom, one more game?
With Safe Flight, you get a text when we're on our way. You can see exactly when we'll arrive.
Sure. Bring it.
I'm Michael with Safe Flight.
Thanks for coming. It's right over here.
Giving you a few more minutes for what matters most.
Take care. Bye. Safe Flight Repair, Safe Flight Replace.
So, tell us your big idea for getting the whole country booking on choicehotels.com.
4 words. Bada book, bada boom.
Let it sink in.
Shouldn't we say we have the lowest price?
Nope. Bada book, bada boom.
Have you ever stayed with Choice Hotels, like at a Comfort Inn?
Yep. Free waffles. Can't go wrong.
I like it.
Promote that guy.
Get the lowest price on our rooms, guaranteed. When you book direct at choicehotels.com. Book now.
I used to feel like my metabolism was stuck. Sound familiar? Now you can boost your metabolism, lose weight fast, and have more energy.
Introducing Lean 13 Plus from Nutrisystem. Now with turbo boosters to rev your metabolism. Lose up to 13 pounds and 7 inches overall in your first month. Lose weight fast. Money back guaranteed.
I'm Marie, and I lost 50 pounds on Nutrisystem.
Order your 28-day plan right now, and we'll rush you Lean 13 Plus. Get 1 week of all new NutriCurve bars to curb cravings free. And 1 week of turbo shakes packed with probiotics to shrink your belly free. Plus, free turbo boosters to rev your metabolism.
Thanks to Nutrisystem, my metabolism is red hot.
Call or go online in the next 2 minutes and get FedEx shipping free. Millions have lost weight on Nutrisystem. Lose up to 13 pounds and 7 inches overall in your first month.
Boost your metabolism, your energy, and your weight loss. Call or go online now.
Go online or call 877-955-FIN right now and get Lean 13 Plus with bars, shakes, and turbo boosters free.
Working hard to lower your LDL bad cholesterol? Not making enough progress? You eat well, take the highest dose statin you can, but still aren't getting where you need to be. Now there's Repatha, a different way to reduce LDL and get on the path to dramatically lower numbers. Repatha works differently than your statin to help clear LDL. Repatha plus the highest dose statin drove down LDL an average of 71% more than a statin alone.
Do not take Repatha if you are allergic to it. Repatha may cause allergic reactions. Signs include redness, severe rash or itching, swollen face, or trouble breathing. The most common side effects include runny nose, sore throat, common cold symptoms, flu or flu-like symptoms, back pain, and redness, pain, or bruising at the injection site.
Added to a highest dose statin, Repatha lowered LDL below 70 for up to 90% of people. Ask if Repatha can get you on the path to way lower LDL.
It's the 10th season of Parts Unknown, and I still have a job? Who saw that coming?
Season 10 of Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown starts Sunday, October 1st at 9 on CNN.
At the Original Mattress Factory, we build our orthopedic line with you in mind. High-quality woven fabrics, high-density foams, and natural cotton padding. We use a premium quality support system and real working box springs for optimal support and long-term durability. Finally, our two-sided mattress construction helps the mattress last longer and minimizes body impressions. So stop by an Original mattress near you and experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an Original.
I was involved in a really bad motorcycle accident where I was covered on my whole body with road rash. I didn't know what to do, so I contacted this law firm, and they said I'd be lucky to get $15,000 for my injuries. Working with Blake Maislin's team of experts, I had great response, kept me up to date, and after just 2 months, I walked away with over $40,000. I'm really glad that I called the law offices of Blake Maislin. It was one of the best decisions I think I've ever made.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
We return to our coverage of Hurricane Irma. I'm Chris Cuomo. I am in Naples, Florida. That's on the western coast. One of the areas of particular vulnerability that became a big concern when the storm path shifted. We also have Anderson Cooper, who's up closer to Tampa Bay, that area. It has never seen a storm of the magnitude that might come that way. John Berman in Miami, they've been getting hit consistently for hours, and we have CNN people everywhere that the storm has been, is now, and will go. One of the big concerns about the West Coast here is about the energy exchange of Irma. She is a huge storm, and the way that the storm works in basic fashion is the winds are moving counterclockwise. And I want to bring in Randy Kay, because as the storm gives storm surge on one side, it's sucking energy from the other side. So we're seeing the water move away in places like Naples and Tampa Bay, but that water is going to come back. And when it comes back, it's going to multiply, and it's going to have power behind it, and that's where the fear of storm surge comes in. Randy, what are you seeing up there?
Chris, hi, hello to you. We are on Bayshore Boulevard here in Tampa where the rain is coming down. But let me just pan off me here and take a look out there. That is the situation. That's where a lot of folks have been playing in the mud because the water has receded. You could probably hear the police behind me. They've been trying to kick people out of there all day here as the storm starts to make its way in. But you're looking at 700 miles of beautiful shoreline here in Tampa. And now with the such a low tide and the water is being pulled out to sea before the storm actually hits, people have sort of been going out there in the mud and taking selfies and lots of pictures of themselves, including these two folks that I'm joined by here. This is Brian and Felix. You were out there. What made you go out there today?
Well, I mean, this is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime event. The last time a hurricane of this size came through Tampa, I wasn't even born yet. I don't even think I was a twinkle in somebody's eye at that point.
What was it like out there?
Well, it's muddy, kind of smells like the bay, but otherwise everything is really calm.
Yeah. Were you nervous out there?
No, I really wasn't. It's just the wind picked up, and then we kind of had to get out of there because the rain was starting to sting a little bit.
Yeah. Felix, how old are you?
10.
So are you concerned about the hurricane? You certainly have never lived through a hurricane this size.
No, I've never lived through a hurricane this size, but I mean, honestly, with my mom, I'm not too concerned about it.
She's a good protector, huh?
Yes.
And what about your dog here? Here's a dog. You have your dog Simba?
That's not my dog.
Oh, it's not your dog. Okay.
My dog.
He's your dog.
Yeah.
Okay. So Simba's riding it out with you. You guys are all going to be okay, you think, where you are?
Well, we're a much higher ground. We're technically in flood zone in between C and D. So we're not under evacuation orders, but we decided to come down and have a look at things. So.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. So that's the situation here. A lot of mud, and the water has definitely moved out here along the boulevard here in Tampa. Anderson, back to you.
Randy, it's so interesting that you're down by the bay. I just want to show you the Hillsborough River where we are along the Riverwalk. And again, we have been watching now over the last couple hours as, you know, you talked about the water in Tampa Bay being sucked out. Hillsborough River is draining into the Hillsborough Bay, which then is connected obviously to Tampa Bay. And you can, for the last several hours, we've been watching this water go down. And, you know, I've been pointing out that sandy bank across the river. You couldn't see that when we first got here. And again, importantly, as Chad Myers has been talking about, you know, all this water is going to be coming back in here, coming back in fast, probably in the late night hours, even after some of the worst winds may have gone through. I want to go to Alex Marquardt, who is about 50 miles south of me in Sarasota. Alex, excuse me, how are things there?
Well, Anderson, the wind and the rains have started up, as you can see, but this pales in comparison to what we're going to expect in the next few hours. We're told by local officials that the winds around 5 or 6 p.m., so about 3 hours from now, will go up to 75 to 95 miles an hour with gusts of up to 115 miles an hour. So the message from local officials right now is shelter in place. They have been heeding the instructions. People here, residents of Sarasota, have been heeding the instructions of local officials to either stay in place, hunker down at their homes if they feel comfortable, or to get to shelters. There are 10 shelters in Sarasota County. Some 16,000 people have gone to find shelter. We are here at one of them now. This is Brookside Middle School, and unlike some of the other shelters that we've seen, you saw Drew Griffin at that arena down in Fort Myers. This is a school, so people are sheltering in classrooms. It is being run by the Red Cross. There are classrooms that are full of families, classrooms for the elderly. There are even 350 dogs and cats here at Brookside who have gotten their own rooms. That is one of the main reasons that a lot of the families have come here. We have just met the Brady family, Steve and Laura, with their daughter Peyton, their pups Stella and Monty, right?
You got it.
How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. We're doing well right now.
You live not too far away, and you're not in an evacuation area, but you still decided to come to this shelter.
Honestly, we got here at 7:30 this morning. I mean, yesterday morning. We haven't really heard if Sarasota is a full evacuation area in Sarasota or not. But we got here because we just wanted to make sure we were going to be as safe as possible.
Yeah, the evacuation area in Sarasota right now is just along the water. You live inland. Yeah. So did you board up your home? How did you prepare to leave?
Yes, we did. We boarded up our home. It was a very long Friday. Boarded up the whole house on Friday and got here 7:30 yesterday morning. We were here pretty early, you know, making sure we got our spot.
And Laura, the fact that this shelter takes pets, that was of real concern to you guys.
Very much so. These are part of our family, so.
And you actually had to leave some pets behind, no?
I did. We left our bearded dragon and hamster, but tried to secure them as best we could. So.
Because the shelter only takes dogs and cats.
Correct.
How long do you expect to stay here? When are you hoping to be able to get back to your home?
Hopefully tomorrow afternoon. We hope to go check out if it's okay and if everything is good, and then we just have to survive the power outage that we're going to be expecting here too. So.
Have you been getting everything that you need in terms of shelter and food and a place to sleep and comfort?
Yes, we've been taken care of very well. They're very informative, let you know what's going on, and all of the people working here, if you go up and ask them a question, they're very, very helpful and will find out answers for you if they don't know themselves. But they've been great.
And you're not originally from Florida, so have you guys been through anything like this before?
Not anything like what we're expecting here. So we're from Maryland, and this is our first official hurricane in Florida.
And Peyton, how are you feeling? You scared at all?
A little bit nervous, but not too much. I'm just kind of wondering what's going to happen to the pets at home or what's going to happen to the house if windows bust in. I'm just worried about that mostly.
All right, well,
here.
We're wishing you all the best. People here will be riding out this storm over the course of the night. As you heard, many trying to get home in the next few days. A lot of uncertainty in the days ahead, but officials, again, are saying as this storm approaches, you must shelter in place. Anderson?
Alex, just very briefly, have you seen people, are people continuing to arrive at that shelter?
It's a slow trickle. The vast majority have already arrived. There are 1,100 people at this shelter who are registered. They are still accepting people. The authorities don't want anyone in the streets. They're saying wherever you intend to ride out this storm, you should be there right now. But of course, if anyone shows up right now, they will be taking them in.
All right, Alex, be careful. Continue checking with you. I want to go to Chad Myers. Chad, I understand, this storm, which made landfall in the Keys as a Cat 4, I understand that now Cat 3?
It is now down to a Cat 3 because of the interaction with Cuba. In fact, it never truly came back from the interaction with Cuba, and that's the great news. I don't think we even got any Category 4 gusts with this storm. Although the hurricane hunters now have gone home, praise to them for what they did for this storm. They haven't really found a Category 4 gust for some time. And now they're on their way home because the storm has made landfall on the Keys. They no longer chase the storm. Here, right there, that is Marco Island. That right there, that is Naples, Florida. And this is the eye wall heading to you. Marco, I give you 30 minutes. You're going to be in it, maybe less. Naples, probably an hour or less. This is now every time you get closer to the eye, that's when your winds are picking up. And they've been picking up now for a couple of hours. And really, our Chris Cuomo is going to be right downtown for that event. And that's going to be in less than an hour for sure. Tampa still blowing offshore. That means that your water is going away in Tampa Bay. Don't be confused because the water will come rushing back as soon as the eye wall goes by. There's the eye wall right there, headed almost to about Punta Gorda. That's Port Charlotte. This now is 5 p.m. tonight, so 3 hours from now. Move you ahead 3 more hours. Tampa, you're right in the middle of the outer eye wall, not yet to the 120, 115 mile per hour gust that you're going to get. But 11 o'clock tonight, things will go bump in your town as you get the eye wall to the north. Winds will blow from the east to the west. Then by 2 o'clock, the winds stop. And they turn around and they blow the wrong way because you're on the other side of the eye. You will literally be in the eye. You can look up and see the stars or see the moon, but please don't. Don't go outside because as soon as the wind picks up from the other direction, everything that was loosened by the 115 will get blown around by the backside, which will be 100 miles per hour at least. And that's when the surge comes in tonight for you, Anderson.
Wow. So, Chad, just for people here in Tampa who are listening, you're talking really 11 p.m. Till, dawn.
Absolutely. This will be, for some people, it'll be 6 hours of hell.
We're going to take I want to bring back in Chris Cuomo, who just got the news from Chad that in about an hour, Chris, you are very much going to be in it. John Berman is also now in Miami, and I want to go to John because he has been in it on the east coast of Florida since this morning. John, let's go to you.
Yeah, I keep waiting for this to let up, Anderson, and it's just not happening. This storm, the winds here seem to be getting even stronger, even as the storm has moved west and begins to move up the west coast of Florida. The tide behind me has begun to recede at least a little bit. It stopped rising here, even as very much the story in downtown Miami with some of the streets covered. Also here in Miami, we have seen that crane collapse. A crane collapse in a building under construction after there were reports of wind gusts of 100 miles an hour up high. I can tell you, I believe that where I'm standing right now, because I think we've had wind gusts here upwards of 90 miles an hour over the last few hours. And Chad Myers told me a short time ago we can expect another few hours of this before it begins to die down and become much more a story on the West Coast, where Chris and Anderson are right now. Let's talk more about the storm surge and see so many people now posting photos of downtown Miami where the streets looking like streams. Our Rosa Flores is there to give us a sense of what things look like. Rosa. Is Rosa there? All right, so we don't have Rosa there. I think we've lost Rosa's audio. To be honest, I don't hear much of anything. All right, I'm told we're going back to Rosa, who is on the streets, which are flooding. All right, now I'm hearing, let's go out to Miami Beach. I'm in Miami right now, where you can see the winds are blowing pretty fiercely. It's even worse out there on Miami Beach. Worse than this, if you can believe it. Let's go to Kyung La out there. Kyung?
Hey, John, what we're seeing now is probably the heaviest rain that we've seen throughout the day. We've had strong winds, but now we're just getting hammered by the rain. You can see that we still have very strong winds. That's what's been concerning for the city of Miami Beach. We spoke with the mayor just a short time ago, and the mayor did tell us that the city pumps are working, that they haven't had any instance of major flooding here, unlike what they're seeing in Miami. But what's happening here is just the pounding, unforgiving rain. And this is part of what's happening in a hurricane. So this is what's heading further west. It's going to be even worse, though. You can barely see. Earlier this morning, even as we were getting some of this strong wind, you could still see those palm trees, but now you can no longer see what's happening to us. You can tell that we're down a little water in our lens. Our camera can no longer zoom anymore. Everything soaks in, not just to our gear, but throughout the city. So what the Miami Beach Fire and police are saying is, do not come outside. They are no longer responding to calls. They have not been able to do so throughout the day because of these dangerous conditions. They've also cut off all traffic. Anyone who's trying to get in and between Miami Beach and Miami, that is just not happening. Those bridges and streets are closed because of all of the hazards here, John.
All right, Kyung La out in Miami Beach, which is over there. Kyung, I can serve as a second source. This is the heaviest rain we've seen, raining really hard here right now. Let's go back to Chad Myers in the Weather Center. You know, Chad, this has been going on just for hours and hours and hours here in Miami.
It has, and more hours to come, because there's one big heavy band just to your south that's going to rotate up to you. But just to the north of there, a little more imminent up here, Fort Lauderdale, there is a tornado on the ground at Fort Lauderdale Airport. It came off the ocean as a water spout, but onshore as a tornado. If you're just to the north and northwest of that airport, I need you to take cover more than you're taking cover now. Stay away from windows, because that could certainly tear some things up. We saw some video earlier near Palm Bay where a tornado touched down, and it was quite a bit of damage there, at least an EF1 tornado there. This is going to be possible all night long in this entire box right there, John.
All right, Chad Myers in the Weather Center, thanks so much for that. Let's try one more time to go to Rosa Flores, because I want people to see what has happened on the streets of downtown Miami in what was the mandatory evacuation zone. And now, Rosa, I think we get a sense of just why officials wanted people out of those areas.
Yeah, all you have to do is look around me and you can see why. We're seeing a lot of ponding here in this part of the financial district. Now, here's what's happening. Our meteorologists have been talking about this since the get-go. There is storm surge. I am about 3 to 4 blocks from the ocean. And what happens with storm surge is the ocean comes onto land. And we've been seeing that happening. We were a few blocks closer earlier today, and we saw a lower level of one of the big apartment buildings take in water. Now, as we moved closer and closer, farther and farther away from the ocean, then you can also see not only the surge, but the ponding, a huge issue here in Miami. Now, there is a system of canals, 2,100 miles of canals, and 2,000 miles of berms and levees that keep the lower 16 counties of Florida dry. It drains all into the ocean. It's not draining right now. All you have to do is take a look around me to realize that. And here's what happened. So on top of the ocean coming onto land, on top of the surge, there is a lot of debris because of the high winds that we've been experiencing. You can't see it now, but earlier we could see leaves on a lot of these drains, tree branches, all sorts of debris. It blocks the drains and it doesn't allow the system of canals to work. That's why we're seeing a lot of more of this ponding, John. And then you take a look right now, and we are getting very heavy rain. So not only are we seeing the surge, but the ponding because the drains are clogged. On top of that, we're getting a lot of rain as we see the real force of Irma over Miami. John?
All right, Rosa Flores, thanks so much. Getting a sense of the storm surge there. I'm in the middle of a wind and just a pounding rain over where I am at this point. Just to give you a sense of how giant this storm is, this is happening to us over in Miami, over in Fort Myers, all the way over on the West Coast. Drew Griffin is in a shelter that just lost power. Drew, give us a sense of what you're seeing. What's going on?
You've hit the nail on the head. You've just got this incredible storm on this side of the coast. You're on the east side of the coast, and Irma is still back behind me. This is an incredibly wide swath of area that is just getting blown apart right now. If you would look at a map on Florida, you can realize just how wide this is happening. We did just lose power here in Fort Myers. The wind is really picking up now. We're picking up more and more car alarms blowing. And the phenomenon we have is the opposite of what you have in terms of the water, John. The water is not being pushed in. The water here in the canals and in the bays is being pushed out to sea. It will come back around as Irma goes up the coast and then pushes that water back in. But right now, you know, your typical hurricane, we're getting pelted with ever-increasing winds and rain as Irma slowly makes her way up the coast, the west coast of Florida, John, the west coast. Back to you.
That's unbelievable. Unbelievable, Drew, that you are on the west coast, part of Florida where this storm has not even delivered its greatest wrath yet. We're getting it here in Miami. Up the coast from where I am is West Palm Beach. That is where Brian Todd is hanging on. Brian.
We are hanging on, John, and we're getting it just about as severely as you are. This is the most intense wind and rain that we have seen all day. Look at these palm trees and these trees over here, swaying pretty strongly in the wind. We're just a few feet away from the Intercoastal Waterway. The mayor told me a short time ago she's very concerned about these streets that are right next to the waterway getting flooded. That could happen really at any moment because the storm surge is intensifying. I heard Chad talking about a tornado at the airport south of here at Fort Lauderdale. We are in the middle of possible tornadic activity all day long. That's going to be a threat. We were told by our weather team pop-up tornadoes are going to be hitting or could threaten us for most of the day today. Look at just how intense this wind is. Look at the stanchion over there, that Flagler Street stanchion holding the traffic light. That is swaying. These regular traffic signs are swaying pretty violently. So all this stuff, these are all potential projectiles. The palm trees over here have been really swaying almost violently and in some cases almost snapping. And they've got coconuts that are dropping off, palm fronds that weigh about 10 to 20 pounds that are flying around like they're cardboard. Even in these conditions, John, what we can tell you is that not everybody here is cooperating with the orders to stay off the streets. We were just told by Palm Beach County officials they've arrested 43 people for curfew violations, if you can believe that in these conditions. We saw actually a couple of cars driving by here not long ago. Not smart. Not smart, because not only are you risking driving through storm surge and getting hit with a projectile like a branch or a coconut, but you're risking arrest. Another factor here that we got to talk to you about, these cranes behind me, these large construction cranes. I know we've been talking about that all day. You've been reporting in Miami about the crane that cracked. That's a danger here. We were just assured by a local fire chief that these cranes, they believe, are secure, but they're watching them closely. The fire chief said these cranes, the top of them, those top booms that you see up there, he said they're, quote, pulling with the wind, and he said that's a good thing. That means that they're just going to point wherever the wind goes, and if they have to, whip around on their turrets, that's okay. That means they're not providing too much resistance. That means they could stay in place. But there are several apartment buildings that are right next to these cranes, and not everybody has evacuated from those apartment buildings, John, and they're telling us, we've talked to several residents of these apartments, they are concerned about these cranes toppling over. They saw what happened in Miami. Look at this over here. Really intense bursts. I mean, we are in the window now of hurricane force winds hitting us here in West Palm Beach. The storm surge could hit really at any moment. Look at that scene right there. John, back to you.
Yeah, an intense storm, Brian, a huge storm. This is pounding you up in West Palm Beach, getting me here in Miami. Of course, the worst yet to come on the West Coast. Back to the Weather Center now, Chad Myers. Chad, I just can't get over the duration here and the size of the storm we're dealing with.
Hey, John, you're halfway done. How about that? That is scary, and that's why people need to pay attention to hurricane forecasts. I know how wet you are inside and out, whether you wear a waterproof jacket or not. This is blowing into Miami right now, into Kendall, all the way down to Homestead and blowing onshore. And there's our Brian Todd in West Palm, another batch of cells here. But the Hurricane Center just put out a warning, and they said if you are Marco, Naples, Everglades City, anywhere in this zone, you're about to get inundated with 10 to 15 foot of storm surge. Whether your water has been going out or not, get away from the water, get inside and above 15 feet above sea level, because the water is coming in, and it's coming in fast. John?
All right, Chad Myers for us right now. Listen to that warning. If you were in the zones that Chad was just talking about on the west, a 10 to 15 foot storm surge expected and soon over there, and there's nothing you can do once it comes. So please listen to the authorities there. Joining me now is Major Richard Rand with the North Miami Beach Police Department, I believe. Did I get that right? Is it North Miami Beach, sir?
Yes, North Miami Beach Police Department.
All right. Give me a sense of what you're seeing where you are right now, Major.
So let me tell you what's going on in North Miami Beach. We have gusts of winds of up to 60 to 70 miles an hour. We have several homes that have been damaged as a result of the winds. We have power lines down. We have severe flooding going on in some of our neighborhoods. The intercoastal and our waterways are basically at the tops of the rim. More rain is really going to hurt us because it's just going to overflow into the communities. We do have multiple power lines down. Like I said, we have transformers that have exploded overnight and into the morning. We've lost power here at the police department. Our EOC is currently operating on generator power. Our air conditioning in our police department has gone down. We have some slight damage to our police department. We're barely holding it together, but I can tell you that North Miami Beach is prepared to serve our residents and make sure that they can come home to a safe environment.
We know you are holding it together, sir. We appreciate the work you're doing. We know you can't get out right now. The first responders can't get out because the winds are just blowing too strong right now. How many calls have you been receiving? How are people faring out there on Miami Beach?
People are faring well. I truly believe that people listen to the evacuation orders. The North Miami Beach Police Department and Miami-Dade County did an excellent job notifying the residents of this storm. Even though we're not getting hit with a direct Category 3 or 4, it sure feels like it out there. We have a military vehicle, an MRAP, that we're sending out every couple of hours to assess the damage. So our patrol units and emergency vehicles are currently off the road right now because it's just too dangerous for us to go out there.
One of the biggest concerns in Miami Beach and North Miami Beach was storm surge. They had been predicting 5 to 10 feet. They downscaled that to 4 to 6 feet, which is still an awful lot for where you are right now. We are seeing storm surge here in Miami proper. Is that something that has affected you yet?
It's affected us in certain areas of our city. I can tell you there is some pretty major flooding east of Biscayne Boulevard, US 1, from 163rd Street. I have one of our all-terrain vehicles out there now doing a survey to see what kind of damage we're having with the intercoastal waterways. I can tell you that they're filled to the brim. They are at the top. If the rain continues for the next 6 to 8 hours, we're going to have some pretty serious problems. So it's so important that people stay inside their homes. I don't know if you saw it behind me, but my emergency vehicle was just returning. It's important that people stay inside their homes, stay away from windows. We're getting gusts of 70 miles an hour. And we have damage to some of our police cars that are sitting in the parking lot. We also have flooding. It's pretty bad down here.
And finally, Major, last question to you. When this is finally over in the next 6 hours or so here in the Miami Beach area right now, what do you want your people to know?
I can tell you this, that I have a crew standing by of about 40 officers. We have a couple of military vehicles, the MRAP, where we're going to be able to get out into these neighborhoods. Once it's safe, I'm going to be sending out a whole crew of people as well as Public Works. We're going to work very efficiently to get our roads cleared, to get Florida Power and Light here, to get these power lines out of the roadway. We're going to be very efficient. We have a very good plan in place, and we're prepared.
All right, Major Russell Rand, thank you so much for your work, the North Miami Beach Police Department. Your work really just beginning. You say you're barely hanging on by a thread. I know you mean you're in there and you're just waiting to get out and help the people who will need it when this storm dies down and when it is safe enough for you to do so. Thank you so much, sir. And joining us now is retired Major General Russell Honore. Of course, General Honore ran the recovery effort and the response after Hurricane Katrina. General, thank you so much for being with us. I've heard you talk about the fact that in a storm like this, Mother Nature wins the first quarter. It feels like we're in the first quarter right now, maybe not even halfway through it, sir.
Absolutely, and it's going to go on for some hours to come. And after the eye pass, we're still going to be dealing with the surge. But there's an activity that we just witnessed the Major talking about, and that's transformers breaking. As that storm moves up and get hurricane force winds inside of counties and cities, they need to consider taking the grid down. If you don't take the grid down, all the transformers are going to blow. So you're dealing with tomorrow with having to put the wires back and having to find transformers to replace. So we continue to learn how we respond to these storms. And then the next challenge is, will the distribution lines go down? And will the surge water, how high it's going to get in Tampa and in West Palm Beach? Those are big issues that could leave those two communities totally flooded because they have access canals. And with the surge coming in, that water could come and stay, so you could have a grid down as well as flooding. John?
Yeah, General, the big concern now, Chad Myers just said there's a warning that's gone out to some of the cities on the West Coast, including Naples, of a 10 to 15-foot storm surge coming and coming soon. And in some ways, there's not much you can do to prepare for that except get the people out beforehand. What can they expect to see? And then once those waters do recede, what will the response be?
Absolutely. Number one, they need to take their grid down if you're going to have surge waters like that. Otherwise, we're going to have a Sandy affair going where houses are going to start catching fire. So it's imperative that they take those grids down and it'll prevent further damage to the transformers. The next thing, they will not see any search and recovery until the winds go below 30 miles an hour. Then we have a search and rescue plan starting that will come up from Key West, and the Navy and the Coast Guard will start to come in behind the storm. But people will be on their own for about 12 to 14 hours until that the winds die down. Then we've got to deal with the water that could be associated with power lines on. So it's imperative that, again, we learn from Sandy, We learned from Harvey, take that grid down when you get the hurricane winds, otherwise you're going to have fires.
Yeah, and then you will have power out for some time. Russell Honore, General Honore, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate your insight here as we continue to work through what you call the first quarter of a disaster like this, the quarter that Mother Nature usually wins. We come in the second, third, and fourth quarter to try to recover from a storm like this. Miami still getting pounded by the winds and the rain. The storm starting to move up the west coast right now. A threat of severe storm surge all along the west coast of Florida, including Naples. CNN's special live coverage of Hurricane Irma continues right after a quick break.
Discover card. Hey, what can you tell me about your new Social Security alerts? Oh, we'll alert you if we find your Social Security number on any one of thousands of risky sites, so you'll be in the know. Ooh, sushi. Ugh, being in the know is a good thing.
Sign up online for free. Discover Social Security alerts.
As a Hall of Fame coach, I know it takes the right combination of ingredients to win championships. Synodrin fast-acting gel powered by Immunodrin penetrates the skin to get the fast relief you need. Whether you're a weekend warrior or on your feet all day, why settle for less? Have the best with Synodrin fast-acting gel, results guaranteed.
Visit Synodrin.com to find a retailer near you.
During our Made to Move 2017 clearance event, you can do endless online research. Or you can take advantage of our best offer ever on an XT5. Don't wait. Our 2017 models will be moving fast. You can drive a car, or you can drive a Cadillac. Come in now before the end of our Made to Move 2017 clearance event and leave with the perfect Cadillac XT5 for your next adventure. Choose a low mileage lease on this XT5 for around $339 per month.
We believe in rock and roll. We believe in blasting it down the fairway, turning up the heat and the fun. At Del Webb, we believe in life well led, in your own beautiful, smartly designed home, in an active adult community with sushi eaters, artists, thrill seekers, and you. We believe you'll like it here.
I enjoy the fresher things in life. Fresh towels, fresh soaps, and of course, TripAdvisor's freshest, lowest prices. So, if you're anything like me, you'll want to check TripAdvisor. We now instantly compare prices from over 200 booking sites to find you the lowest price on the hotel you want. Go on, try something fresh. TripAdvisor, the latest reviews, the lowest prices.
Register today at Elite Singles, where you'll benefit from 100% verified profiles, an extensive personality test, and tailored matches in your area. EliteSingles.com. Never more ready to fall in love again.
Dental professionals recommend using an electric toothbrush. For an exceptionally fresh feeling, choose Philips Sonicare Diamond Clean. Hear the difference versus Oral-B? In a recently published clinical study, Philips Sonicare Diamond Clean outperforms Oral-B 7000, removing up to 82% more plaque and improving gum health up to 70% more. It's sonic technology cleaning deep between teeth. From the most recommended sonic toothbrush brand by dental professionals. Switch to Philips Sonicare today. Philips Sonicare. Save when you buy now.
Having my mom around to help with my daughter means the world to me, so I got her a smartphone.
Amanda, I'm out front, honey.
It's the all-new Jitterbug Smart from Great Call. It's got one of the biggest, brightest screens, and with the built-in 5-star app, I know she can always get help.
One touch and you'll be immediately connected to a highly trained agent who can confirm your location, assess the situation, and get you the help you need.
And right now, get 25% off at Best Buy, Rite Aid, or Sears.
Now you can win $1,000 a day for life from Publishers Clearinghouse.
You gotta be kidding me.
We're not kidding. It's $1,000 a day, every day, for life. Go to PCH.com and enter. October 13th, you can win $1,000 a day for life.
All right, John Berman here, back in Miami right now. Again, we continue to be in the relentless winds of Hurricane Irma. Gusts over 80 miles an hour, approaching 90 miles an hour in the downtown area and the high-rises. They're reporting wind gusts of 100 miles an hour, which is easy to believe. Very easy to believe given what we're in right now, where we're standing. A crane did collapse there in the high winds. There is some storm surge on the streets right now, with some of the major boulevards covered with water. Here where we are, it seems the waters are receding just a little bit. We're keeping a very close eye on that. And again, Miami not even going to get the worst of it. The eye moving ever closer to the west coast of Florida, ever closer to population centers like Naples, then Fort Myers, then Tampa. Let's go to Anderson Cooper, who is in Tampa. Anderson, I gotta say, if you're gonna get worse than this, you have a heck of a night in store for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people here in Tampa and Naples have been watching the images out of Miami with understandably a lot of concern because they know what is heading here is going to be exponentially worse. I'm joined right now by Senator Bill Nelson from the state of Florida. When you see those pictures out of Miami, and we're looking at some right now, it really is a warning to people here about what to expect in the coming hours.
Anderson, people are scared, but people are really helping other people. But Miami is getting those outer rain bands. The real strength of this storm is going to be as it comes up the west coast here. And this river that is now down because it's draining out, the wind is coming from east to west. That's going to reverse.
Yeah, when the Hillsborough River goes to Hillsborough Bay and Tampa Bay.
And when the eye of the storm comes up off of the coast and that counterclockwise wind is going to bring that water up Tampa Bay, and up here it doesn't have anywhere to go. You're going to get some flooding here.
Yeah, storm surge expected anywhere from 5 to 8 feet. But again, with the winds, hurricane force winds, there's going to be waves on top of that water.
And especially if it's at high tide, then we got all the more water.
Yeah. Nobody who has lived in Tampa, or nobody alive in Tampa, has ever seen a storm like this hit Tampa. 1921 was the last time.
It's never been the big one that would bring the water up here. Now, the only consolation is that it's not going to be a Cat 5, 155 miles an hour plus, but it is going to be significant wind that is going to drive that water up here.
Yeah, I was reading some stuff the mayor had said, I believe it was last year, warning about a Cat 3 storm, about the flooding that would take place, even, in heavy rain, not a torrential, not a hurricane. Tampa, areas in St. Petersburg have problems with flooding.
And that's an example, by the way. They're all prepared. They've done a lot of work. Mayor Buckhorn, Hillsborough County, they're working seamlessly with the federal government, the state government, and local government. It is working all over the state. I've been all over the state, and this is the best prepared I've seen. Now, FEMA is stretched because they're in Texas. They held back people from going to Texas so they could bring them into Florida. But FEMA is really going to have to do extra work after the storm.
Well, given the size of the storm, that's been one of the problems for FEMA about wanting, they like to obviously pre-position supplies and resources. But where do you pre-position when the storm is affecting the entire state and you don't exactly know where it's going?
And it has. It's covered up the entire state.
Yeah. The other thing I heard Administrator Brock Long of FEMA say to Renee Marsh yesterday out of Washington is that there could be millions of people without power, possibly for weeks. There's a big elderly population, obviously, in the state of Florida. How concerned are you?
Well, I'm very concerned. Already in South Florida, we have about 750,000 people without power.
750,000.
That's just in South Florida because of all those rain bands and the wind bands that have come in from the Atlantic. As you move that state through the entire peninsula, you're going to have a lot of downed trees onto power lines. There are going to be a lot of people, and that's when neighbors helping neighbors is really going to count. Go check on your neighbor. Make sure that they're doing okay.
When the electricity goes out, things can change very quickly for a lot of people. I mean, there are people who need access to medication. There are people who need access to dialysis. We saw that in Harvey. Even just kind of the mundane day-to-day things that people need for their health. When there's no electricity, those are things that have to be taken care of.
I've never seen people as prepared in Florida as I have here. They've got, most people are packing up ice, putting it in coolers to try to get as far as they can without power. But as you say, Anderson, if it's weeks without power, it'll be a real strain.
What are you hearing from the Keys?
Well, I talked to the mayor of Key West. The hurricane was going to the right of him, somewhere between there and Marathon. Marathon is probably getting the worst of the wind, but they are you know, they're conchs. They're accustomed to hurricanes. By the way, a tremendous evacuation. They only had about 10,000 people left in the whole county. They moved most of their emergency operations up to the northernmost key, Key Largo. So they're as prepared as they can be.
Yeah. Senator Nelson, I really appreciate your time. Thank you. Good luck to you.
Thanks.
Senator Nelson, who's been traveling around, he was in Orlando earlier, went to the EOC, trying to check on as many locations as he can. Again, we have reporters who've been looking at John Berman in Miami, just getting really hammered there in Miami. Also, Chris Cuomo starting to expect a turn and some really bad weather, according to Chad Myers, in the next hour or so. Our coverage is going to continue, obviously, from here and all points across southern Florida and beyond. We'll be right back.
Tonight we shake hands with pots and pans and take things step by step. Tonight we cook. Delivering delicious ingredients you'll love to eat, simple recipes you'll live to cook. HelloFresh, get cooking. Save $30 with code TV30.
My name's Ron, and I lost 80 pounds on Nutrisystem.
Men, pay attention. Have a big belly? Want to raise your testosterone? Like to have more energy and improve your lean muscle mass? Then lose weight with Nutrisystem for men.
I'm Essex, and I lost 43 pounds on Nutrisystem.
Lose 15 pounds in
for me is to assess what the duration of this storm is going to mean. These trees have been getting battered. We've been seeing these storm shutters start to flail, start to move more and more. So it's not just about the intensity, but it's about the duration. You know, how long can these trees sustain? And when they don't, and they break, that failure leads to a projectile. It goes through windows. It goes through cars. God forbid there are any people around. We have not seen that to be the case, but you know what would happen if you get hit by anything like that. So that's why Ed is on ground level. I'm up here for us to assess what is happening here, because this has been hours of this. And if we can bring Chad back, Ed, sneak inside for a second. Get yourself out of this. Chad, duration and the idea that some of this has been kind of tenderizing to the Naples City area, that while it's been waiting for hours for Irma to come in earnest, it's been getting hit with wave after wave and wind. As I've been watching John and all the correspondents down in the Miami area, it hasn't looked that much worse than what they've had here for about 5 hours. That tenderizing effect. What can you tell us about that?
Right, very typical of a hurricane when we talk about a category 3, 4, or 5. The 3, 4, or 5 only happens in a band about 10 miles wide, right along the eye wall. The rest of the hurricane is a hurricane, and you get 75 to maybe to 100. Well, that's what we've had all day, is that 75 to 100, Chris, right where you're standing right there. But now Marco Island, which is honestly 10 to 15 miles to your south, just had a wind gust to 130 in the northern eye wall. There's the eye wall there, Marco Island right underneath it. Get my finger out of the way so you can see the orange right through here. That's the northern eye wall. There isn't truly a southern eye wall, and that's because it hit Cuba. The storm never truly regained strength, and that is fantastic news. Even though the model said it would, it didn't. You know, like I said earlier and yesterday, Irma doesn't know if there's an American model or a European model. It doesn't care. It's going to do what it wants to do. So now it has a northern eye wall, no southern eye wall, but that will get to you. And your pictures, if you can stay on the air, will be dramatically different in 15 minutes than they are right now. Your winds will honestly go up by 40%. I don't want to say double, but close. The power of the wind will double. So all of those trees, all those palm trees that have been sitting there getting wet feet are all of a sudden not going to have a lot of traction for those roots, and they will begin to fall over. I'm not saying the ones behind you. I don't know how protected that area is. It seems so. But in downtown Miami, with the winds gusting to 94, there is a wind tunnel effect going on there right now. And the pictures coming out of downtown Miami, especially near Brickell, where it looks like you're in a car wash. It looks like someone is just spraying you with a pressure washer. Chris?
Yeah, those are good descriptive phrases. And, you know, I have to figure out what that sound is. I don't know if you hear it, but there is a big piece of metal that has something rubbing against it or that's shifting around, and we've been hearing it increasingly, and that's one of the reasons we're looking around. It's certainly not in our proximity. I've been doing this long enough. I have no interest in being a statistic, but we're trying to figure out what it is just so we can assess the risk. And Chad, you know, guys like me and you, I was built to stand in a storm. I do not get shifted by wind very easily, but I have to tell you, this tunnel effect is manifesting itself a little differently here. If Ed Lavendera's shot is still up, Ed, let me know if you can hear me, because, you know, you too, you got a solid base on you, and these little bit taller buildings here, they funnel the wind down into these areas, Chad. Ed, if you can hear me, let me know, because I've been watching on either side of where we're stationed. The wind comes through, and it's like turbocharged through these avenues, and that's where the trees have really been getting plucked off like twigs. And I think that's part of dealing with the topography, you know, that these buildings, like this gust as it comes through now, it's magnified by this channel as it's coming down, and we can see the trees here just not faring as well, the buildings not faring as well, and we'll see what it does over time. Chad, let me give you a little chance here. Dave. All right, so this is an avenue. This is 5th Street, right? And this is Park Street here, 5th Avenue South, Park Street. As this wind comes down, we've been watching. This tree is a shocker. They're very wisely cabled it cable that literally means what it sounds like. There are pieces of wire inside that tree holding it together, you know, as a reinforcement to its integrity. And what a difference it's made. I can't believe it's made it. Because right down the street, Dave, if you can take a cheat, look down the sidewalk, a tree of equal size didn't make it. And now we're getting more of this effect of it. It's coming strong now. I don't know if Chad can give us a reading of what kind of gusts we're getting, but let me tell you, I've been in enough of these. Ed, if you're back with me now, this is real deal wind that we're feeling now. What are you getting down where you are, pal? Can you hear me?
Hey, Chris, I can hear you. We're here in essentially downtown Naples, about a half-mile away from the Gulf Coast. And then if you look back in this way, this is looking back toward into town. We're watching this center over here with the white tarp, and that rooftop there has been buckling up and down rather severely here for the last couple of minutes. So we'll continue to monitor things like that. The wind is just ferociously blowing from the east to the west back toward the Gulf, and that's clearly an indication, you know, we are on the north side of this storm as this thing swirls around us and the eye continues to creep closer to us. After the eye wall gets here, the winds are going to shift. It's going to be from the west to the east. I was out on the beach just a little while ago monitoring the situation there, and it was amazing. The surf had been pushed back by these winds a good 100 yards from where we saw it yesterday. Essentially all of that moisture getting pushed back out into the Gulf waters. And as we stand out here, we're obviously keeping close tabs on what's coming from our eastern side over here, Chris. You know, here the danger is that things are flying around so quickly that these large palm tree branches that we have seen flying off trees relentlessly throughout the day continue to do so. You can see them all over here littered on the ground, and then you can see water pooling up here on the ground. This is a minor little pool of water, but this gives you a good indication of what's happening more severely and more seriously in other parts of the neighborhood where all of that, this is the storm surge, all this water getting pushed up. And the real concern is back over here to our east, and is the river that comes pushing in from south to north on the edge of Naples, Florida, where we are. And it is that water and into that marina, the water with these winds going to get pushed up from the north, and that's what's going to cause that storm surge in a lot of parts here of the Naples area and in Fort Myers, all the way up into Tampa as well. So that is the concern here throughout the day. And obviously these winds are going to be a major concern as well. Structurally, everything seems to be holding rather well from what we've been able to tell. It's things like this, as I mentioned here off the top, Chris, this tarp on top of this what I believe is a recreation center. I have to double check that. But that you can see that kind of buckling back and forth, probably designed to do that to a certain extent. But as we get closer to the wall of this eye of this hurricane, it is structures like that that could come ripping apart here as these winds become the most fierce. Chris?
All right, Eddie. Do me a favor. Let's pace ourselves. Get back inside. Keep yourself and the photographer safe for a little bit. We'll start checking in with some other areas. But before we do, Chad, if you're still hearing us, Chad Myers, what can you give us as a reading in terms of the gusting? Look, we're all worried about the water. The storm surge is going to be the tail of the tape here. That's what kills us in hurricanes. You tell us all the time the lethality is from drowning. The wind just gets the headlines. But just to measure where we are in terms of the part of the process, what are we getting right now that Ed and I are feeling?
I think what you had was just clocked at 81 miles per hour. And the yellow on the map here, I know you can't see it, Chris, but there's a yellow area on the map. That area just went over Marco Island right there with 130 mile per hour gusts. So the winds are going to get 50 miles worse miles per hour than what you just saw as this eye wall gets to you. And if you're on the south side of Naples, you're already feeling it. If you're on the north side of Naples, you aren't in the eye wall yet. And Chris, you're not seeing it yet. You're going to be, honestly, in 5 minutes, the pictures coming from your camera, if we can keep you on the air, are going to be amazing. But I want you and the photographer and the producer to please stay safe, because this is about to get real.
Well, okay, absolutely. You know, we do the job on a regular basis, so it's not the first time, and that's important because often when it is the first time, you're a little bit overly ambitious. But you're making me feel my age, Chad, because what I'm getting hit with right now feels a lot more than 80. Maybe it is just because, again, of the dynamic of the building. So let's check in on another area here, because again, as Chad's been educating us throughout this hurricane coverage, these areas that we're going to start going to, now we're going to go to Punta Gorda, they are especially vulnerable to the components of a storm like this kind of breadth, this kind of duration of impact. For these areas that can't take much, they're particularly vulnerable. So, Miguel Marquez, Punta Gorda, what are you dealing with there now?
Well, we're dealing with what Chad has been talking about a lot today and about how this storm, you really get a respect for the power of Mother Nature with this storm. I'm standing on the marina, on the muddy bottom of the marina here. You can see the mussels all the way down to the bottom. This wouldn't be possible except that the water is being pushed all the way out of the bay here, out to sea as this storm is coming around from the top of us, pushing everything out. When that eye wall passes, it changes direction. Everything that must go out must come back in. So they're expecting a 5 to 8 foot storm surge in this area. They're talking about 3 feet of standing water, 3 feet of water on land with a 5 to 8 foot storm surge. Basically a giant wave that would sweep in here. Very low-lying areas. Look at this down here. This dock should normally be floating here. But that boat, it's sitting in mud. All the boats in here are pretty much sitting in mud. They would not be able to get out. The weather, we're a little protected by this jetty here, but the weather here has definitely taken a turn. We're probably at 50 miles sustained winds and probably gusting up to close to 60. It's going to get worse though. This is about halfway. They're expecting Category 3-ish winds in this area, 110 sustained gusts up to 135. I want to show you this. That debris you see out there in the bay, that's the old bridge. They knocked it down years ago. People in this area haven't seen that in years and years and years. They have 2 new bridges across 41. It's likely that emergency services in this area have stopped now because winds are up over 40 miles per hour sustained. And authorities are saying at this point, shelter and stay in place. Don't try to get anywhere else. Stay where you are. But that storm surge now, the wind is coming, and that's going to do damage. But that storm surge is what they're really worried about. 60% of Charlotte County is in evacuation zones susceptible to flooding. Chris?
All right, Miguel, please keep me honest on what's going on with you. Let me know when to come back to you when the situation changes. We were just dealing with one little piece of hurricane hypocrisy there. I was trying to shoo somebody back inside. They poked out to sea because we're starting to get more violent gusts. And we get the inconsistency of the message. You know, we're saying, hey, don't come out here, it's dangerous, and they see us out here. But again, we are here in part to satisfy that kind of curiosity, to inform of what the situation is on the ground, to let people know and first responders know what's going on with the situations in their area. But you don't want to be out here if you don't have to be. All right, let's get to Ed Lavandera. I understand you found a way, Ed, to show people what's going on without exposing yourself to too much of it, because this is definitely picked up. So what do you have, my friend?
Hey, look, just so people understand what we're doing, we are inside, or kind of tucked away underneath a building that is protected on 3 sides, so it shields, especially our photographer, from the worst of these winds, and we're able to kind of jump in and out of the scene here as safely as we can. So that's kind of the way we operate, so that people understand if they do have that curiosity. But we are watching the winds as the camera angle that you're looking at from where our viewpoint here is looking toward the south, toward the eye of Hurricane Irma, and that is crossing the Marco Island area, which is about 20 miles south of where we are. And you can see the intensity of the winds here, by far the strongest we have experienced all day. I anticipate that this will only continue to worsen here over the next couple of hours. And that wind you see pushing from the left side of your screen.
All right, we lost Ed's shot. We'll make sure that he's okay. Oh, he's back now. Keep going, Ed, if you can.
We're back, Chris. We're still here. Sure. As I was saying, the winds you're seeing are moving from the east to the west across your screen there. We are on what appears to be, and this might have changed here in the last couple of minutes. Chad Myers can clarify a little bit better, but it sounds.
I lost IFB. All right. So Ed lost communications. Not unusual in this kind of situation, especially when it starts to pick up. We'll get him back. What we're dealing with here, though, in Naples, is exactly what they were worried about. This sustained battering of wind and rain. And then there's another huge component, which is going to be the storm surge. I don't know if you could hear Ed Lavandera and Chad Myers earlier talking to us about it, but they were saying that where the water should be, it's now gone. That's part of the energy exchange system of this hurricane, this counterclockwise force. It dumps it on one side, it pulls it out of the other. Chad Myers, if I can bring you in here, we haven't had that water come back yet, at least not in the main, and when it does, it's going to be bringing friends in the form of a surge. That's what we're worried about. How will this combine with that flow of water? What will the net effect of that be on this population?
Well, just issued was a flash flood emergency. Now, that is above flash flood warning, and that is because the water will come crashing back on shore and is about to do so here at Marco. If you are, let's say, here, your winds are now beginning to push this direction, and this entire area from Everglades City all the way back down into the Everglades, flooding, flash flooding, 10 to 15 feet. If you're still here in Naples, the wind blowing offshore and not bringing your water in yet. But Marco, the eye just went by you. And as soon as that eye gets to the other side, all of a sudden the wind are going to shift and the wind are going to move that water back in. So from where we are now, Chris, in your harbor, somewhere 4 feet below where we should be, we're going to push all this water back in and possibly be 15 feet above where we should be. It's the bubble of water that happens below a hurricane because the air is being sucked in. It's a low pressure. There is a bubble of water, and yet there's also the forward motion. Well, now the forward motion of that bubble has stopped. It has stopped because land is now in the way. For a while, Key West was in the way, and so was Cudjoe Key, but those were just islands, and the water just ripped right on by. The water kept going, and now it's smashing on shore from Marco back over to Everglades City and eventually to Naples. Now, if we can get Chris's shot back, I can see Chris now. The wind is still picking up for you. You have at least another 30 miles per hour to go, Chris. So all we're trying to do with your shot is stay on the air, because we want you to be safe, but we also want the people just north of you to know what they have in store, because it's coming.
No, that is definitely the point, and I appreciate the concern. And my PJ is a good man, but Dave, I need you to pop off the sticks for a second and come up here, just so we can give them a sense, because you're right. If you are in Naples or in parts north, you have to understand here's what's coming your way, because these cities are very similarly constructed. Pan to your right, Dave. All right. This is where it's happening. These trees, these structures here have been taking it for hours, and we are seeing them start to give way. There were more of them not so long ago, and a lot of them, as you can see, they're going to be particularly vulnerable. And the concern is, where do they go? When these trees start to come, with these gusts that are increasing, where do they go? What windows do they hit? What structures do they hit? What does it do to power? What do they rip up with them from under the ground? And then what does the soaking storm surge do to those situations? All right, get back inside, Dave. What happens, help Dave get inside. What happens once these trees have ripped up? You good? You good? Once these trees have ripped up with their root system, a lot of the power here that is underground and the water rushes into it, that's when you get a power outage. Now we're nearing about 2 million customers here without power. Now it's flooded. And that goes from hours or days to weeks for recovery. Now, I believe Ed Lavandera is back up. Ed, if that's true, pipe up and let me know what you're seeing from where you are.
Here.
All right.
I think we got cut off a little bit last time, but we fixed up our microphone situation here a little bit better. But as we were saying, Chris, earlier, the winds you're seeing on the north side of this storm pushing from the east toward the west, and that is what you're seeing right now. And as the eye wall of this storm gets closer, the winds will only intensify them. If the eye does come right over where we are, we'll obviously have that lull here in the system for some time. But that does not mean by any means that the threat is over. Then the winds shift. We'll be on the backside of the storm. The winds will come from the west to the east, and that is the concern of the storm surge. Officials here have been saying over the last couple of days that storm surge could reach anywhere 10 to 15 feet. We've already seen water several blocks away from where we are starting to rise in some residential neighborhoods. The question is, where exactly is all that water going to go, and how high will it go? But once the storm passes through, and it is the Gulf waters that are starting to get pushed in here inland, that will be of major concern and something we'll have to continue to monitor. Everyone here that I've spoken with in Naples over the last 24 hours measures hurricanes by what happened here in 2005, Hurricane Wilma. Talking to the mayor yesterday, he said, I asked him if that's a fair comparison, if that's really any way to kind of prepare for this. He acknowledged, look, that's the only barometer we have at this point, Hurricane Wilma, and that was an incredibly strong storm here in this part of southwest Florida. But whether or not it will be any true indication of what this storm and hurricane is bringing remains to be seen. But that's their measuring stick at this point. I have a feeling that Hurricane Irma is going to be a completely separate measuring stick for this community as they see what kind of damage this storm surge here brings to this community. You can see and feel the intensity of these winds. Chris, we pan back over here to the left. You look back over here at this one particular structure. All the structures around us that I see continue to hold up rather well. It's this tarp on top of this rec center area over here that is still of major concern. You know, when you're looking into the rain, it's very disconcerting. You don't know. I'm going to step out here a little bit, so we'll leave up that shot so I can speak a little bit more clearly. But it is that tarp there as it buckles up and down, and wondering just how much longer it is going to last and whether or not it's just going to rip apart from that structure and just get shredded here in those winds. So we'll continue to monitor that, Chris, as these winds and the eye of Hurricane Irma gets much closer here to Naples, Florida, in the southwest corner of the state.
Well, this is what they were worried about, is that a place like Naples that's already very tight to sea level was going to get hit for a long time by Hurricane Irma, and unfortunately, that's what seems to be happening. Dave, if you can pan over to the left, this is the direction that Ed is. You can see the water coming in sheets sideways. You know, obviously the wind is going the way that the trees are going, but there are sheets of water going that way, and each one is like another punch, you know, another tenderizing blow. And this is a fight of many different rounds, and they've been taking it for round after round here. And remember, what the knockout is from Chad Meyer's perspective is this storm surge. And we still haven't seen it yet, but there is flooding around Ed Lavandera. Do you think that that's just groundwater and rain that you're seeing there, Ed, or do you think it's some kind of sign of water coming from the Gulf side?
No, I don't think water is coming from the Gulf side yet. I think a lot of this is rainwater that is pulling up on some of the lower lying areas of the streets. Obviously, that was based on what we saw this morning. You know, the last time we were able to venture out into some of the neighborhoods was about 2 to 3 hours ago, and then it just became too treacherous and dangerous for us to get out there, so we had to pull back. But I think for now, what we've seen is rainwater pulling up in various locations, but that just adds to the problems because the storm surge will come in over the top of that. And we haven't been able to make it over to the riverside here of Naples, where there is an extensive marina system. A lot of people who live on the canals and have their boats there. It is that river that the storm surge will push up through and then push into the more inland areas of Naples, creating that storm surge and that flooding there. So that's of concern. But once the eye passes through, that's the point where we start worrying about the Gulf water surge coming in to the area. And that'll be fascinating to see just how much this city can withstand that surge coming in from the Gulf of Mexico. And we'll see what condition those streets are. Everyone that was on the western edge of Collier County and in Naples was told to evacuate. By far, everything that I had seen, I hadn't seen but maybe a handful of people on the western edge of this city over the last 24 hours. And according to various officials that we've spoken to, they feel like the vast majority of people evacuated those homes, either went to shelters here in Naples or started taking off and left town several days ago to get away from this storm. So that is the good news. It sounds like human life in the path of this storm, for the most part, has evacuated. Of course, that is not to say that everyone evacuated. First responders know that there's always going to be a segment of the population stubborn to leave and willing to ride it out in these conditions, so that they're prepared for that. And in speaking with the police chief on Marco Island, which is about 20 miles south of where we are, and that is a barrier island with about 16,000 people call that full-time as their home. The police chief told me last night, as the storm was starting to approach, that he believed that most of the people had evacuated the area, but they are on the island. 80 first responders, police and firefighters on the island, dispatched in various locations, high-level locations around the island to prepare for this. Those people are in the middle of this storm, perhaps even in the eye of the storm as we speak, probably trying to gauge the situation. But they had deployed boats, watercraft into various areas, prepared to launch any kind of high water rescues if need be, or if anybody was trapped and wanted to escape after that. But they're obviously waiting for the worst of this storm to go by. Chris?
All right, Ed, you dip inside, get everything together. Let me know when to come back to you. But Dave, I want to go back to Miami and check in with John Berman. But before we do, let's give you an opportunity to just get what it is here right now. You're not going to hear from me. It doesn't mean anything's happening, but just try and catch some of this sound and the sights of what is going on in Naples, Florida right now. Dave's going to give you the full pan of the situation and just take it in for what it is. This is what Naples has been dealing with for about an hour or so, and we have hours and hours to go. This is it. This is Mother Nature at her worst, and we're going to hope that we respond with human nature at its best. To John Berman down in Miami, we know you've been seeing it like this. We're getting some unique aspects here, John, because of this corridor effect we're getting where we are in Naples. How is it where you are?
I keep listening to your coverage, Chris, and as it gets worse there, I keep thinking it will get better here, but it just hasn't happened. Not yet. In fact, Miami continues to get hammered by powerful winds, gusts as strong as we've seen them. The rain may be let up for a second here, which is nice. And we did just learn that a second crane has collapsed now in downtown Miami at 30 East, if you're familiar with the geography here. So that's two cranes, one collapsed or a possible failure in the crane. The bottom line is this crane is now hanging. Part of it is hanging down. These cranes, more than 20 of them in downtown Miami, a sign of the progress and the economic sort of boom times that Miami is experiencing, but they couldn't get them down in time. It takes 6 days to a week to get a crane down. They didn't have that much lead time, so they had to leave them up. They secured them. We were told they were built to withstand 145-mile-an-hour winds. Now, I don't know whether we got that here. You know, down on the ground, 80, 90 miles an hour. We were told up in the skyscrapers there were gusts of 100 miles an hour, but it's clear at least two of those cranes have failed. Authorities are telling people not to go anywhere near the areas of those two cranes. And of course, it's not just the cranes that are a problem, also the storm surge. Very much what we anticipate to see on the west coast of Florida. A very real problem at this moment in Miami. The streets that people know so well, Brickell Ave, covered in water. And it's very hard to move around these areas, and they're exact areas that Miami officials ordered mandatory evacuations for. They wanted people out because they were scared of just this thing. We were told of 4 to 6 feet worth of storm surge here. Chad Myers at last check said 5.5 feet, and 5.5 feet was enough to get over some of those storm walls and flood the streets. Where we are right now, when we've been out here straight days nearly, the water came up The water came up, you can see the cement right here. It came up about a foot from the top. It has begun to recede because the tide is going out. So our immediate situation right around here appears to be better. The boats in this marina have taken a beating. Is behind the camera, you can't see it, but there was one of the larger boats at one point was tied down by 8 ropes. There was only 1 rope holding it on at a certain point. People rushing out and trying to secure it. I think maybe they did. We have seen parts of docks float off into the water here. And then another sensation that we saw for much of the morning was bursts of green light out there from Miami Beach. That is where Miami Beach is, and those bursts of green light were transformers blowing. And that, of course, meant that Miami Beach was going to be without power. They could be without power for some time. A lot of Miami-Dade has lost power as well. Again, just the beginning for what will happen in Florida as this storm has made the turn and heads right towards where Chris Cuomo is in Naples. And Chris, I've been listening to you. You know, hang in there. If it's anything like it's been in Miami, it's going to be a problem for many, many hours.
Yeah, and I mean that, you know, the duration is going to be a big part of this story. I'm going to stand out of the shot right now, just so that Dave can give you Dave Rupp, our photojournalist, can give you the full effect of what we're getting hit with now, because it's certainly intensified. And the acute concern here on the West Coast is just the inability to absorb that much, because these cities and areas are so low-lying. And the extra component here, as Chad Myers has been explaining, will be storm surge. That hasn't even come into effect yet. Nothing here has been affected by what could be an additional 10 feet of water that could come in. It could come up many blocks. It could affect power. It could affect a lot of different things, and for a long time. And that's why evacuating was such a key concern. And it's important to note that they got lucky here. And I know that this looks like nothing close to luck, understood. But everything is relative in a hurricane. And the people here decided to evacuate days in advance. This is a little bit of a snowbird city, and the snowbirds, you know, the people come down during the winter, so this is the off season. So there aren't as many people here, but of the 19,000 or so that the city manager said they were worried about, he believes as many as 2/3, according to the mayor, may have left in advance, and that's really important. Here's somebody coming down the road right now. It's not something you see too much, but I think they're one of us. I think those were media going down the road. You've seen almost nobody. That's a very good sign. You have not seen people out. You haven't seen awkward spectating or anything like that. We've been told that the police are keeping people away from the waterfronts. Now, that's really key. Chad Myers tells a really harrowing tale of what happened in Lake Okeechobee some years ago, where the water was gone. People went running out there just out of fascination and collecting fish and stuff like that that were exposed, and then the water came back, and it was a deadly event. And God forbid, we don't want to see anything like that. And I know that they're trying to keep people away from the water's edge, because there's no question, you're seeing the pictures on the internet. It's really freaky to see where the ocean was, where a bay was, where a bayou was, all of a sudden be vacant. But in conditions like this, you just can't have it, John. I mean, this gusting, maybe it's a little different because we're a little elevated here. I'm probably, I don't know, 25 feet or so off the ground. So maybe I'm just feeling it as more intense, but it is just twisting trees like twigs. Chad Myers, I'm never one to question your calculation, that's for sure, but I have to tell you, it's hitting us pretty hard, and it's making a difference. It's taking trees down with pretty much ease right now. I'm watching trees and parts of trees flying through the air. It's picking up, my friend. What can you tell us?
It is going to continue to pick up, and I know that doesn't sound reasonable, and you can ask John how long he's been standing in that brutal weather out there. I feel for you, John. You have a little while to go. I mean, honestly, it was an hour ago I said you're halftime. Now you're third quarter, but you're not fourth quarter. And for you, Chris Cuomo, you are now in the lightest part of the eye wall. the lightest part of the eye wall. You went through a small little outer eye here, and that's now moved to the north. Our Chris Cuomo right there, downtown Naples. But the major part of the eye wall here, you can see the difference in colors in the red. That is about to move over you. I would say that's 3 minutes away, and that is what's going to be hitting you as soon as we toss back to you, essentially. There's the eye wall. What I have noticed for everyone in Tampa is that the storm has slightly turned right. I don't know if it's a wobble or a trend, came out of the Keys, and now it has slightly turned to the right. If that continues, Tampa, you're going to be in much better shape tonight because the storm of the eye of the storm will be right over land for a longer time. The original forecast was for it to come something like this and stay half on land, half off land, and that would continue to be a strong storm all the way to Tampa. If we continue to see this, then we won't see as strong a storm in Tampa tonight at about 8 or 9 o'clock tonight. But there is the eye of the storm right now. Chris Cuomo heading to you. I can see damage already on some of your pictures there. Trees are going to be down. It's going to get worse. I would say you're going to add at least another 30 miles per hour onto what you just saw when you get that part of the eye wall right there, and that's 5 minutes away. Chris?
And then we have to deal with the residual storm storm surge and see what that does. You know, we spoke to someone on Marco Island. You're saying that the storm went over there as a Category 3. Wayne, please check in with us. Wayne is a 61-year-old man, decided to stay in his condo. He said about a dozen people, maybe a little less, decided to stay along with him in their own units. Please check in and let us know that you're okay, because a lot of the people who decided to stay behind wind up being our eyes and ears, as the first responders will be when they get back out, but they're not there yet. So just let us know you're okay. So, John, they're telling me that they're going to put up on the screen a radar comparison of where we are right now. I don't think either of us have returned. So maybe in the control room you can kind of talk us through. What are you seeing in terms of similarities between Miami and Naples right now? Well, they're both being hit very hard is the information they're giving me, John, which I think we could have figured out. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chris. Exactly. Thank you, control room, for telling us we're both being hit hard by the hurricane right now. But that is actually, I think, an exceptional image. Because if you look at the map of Florida, where Chris is in Naples, right? It's all the way on the west coast. I'm in Miami. That's on the east coast. We have all of Florida in between us, and we are both getting hammered right now by Hurricane Irma. And Miami has been hit since last night. We were out here last night beginning to feel the impact of these winds. So it's been nearly 24 hours of consistent winds. Chad Myers promises me we're in the fourth quarter of this game. If it goes into overtime, I'm not talking to Chad anymore ever again. Chris, you have a lot more ahead of you. But again, you know, Chad's the meteorologist here. It feels to me like the size of this storm is highly unusual, and the fact that it's delivering the force on both sides of the state is something we haven't seen before, and it's a contributing factor, frankly, to what you're about to see there with the storm surge as well, Chris.
All right, so John, let's try and bring in somebody else on this West Coast here and get a different sense of perspective of a place that's just starting to get into this. So you got John Berman in Miami and all our correspondents there, obviously, from downtown Miami over onto the East Coast. They've been dealing with this in excess of 12 hours now, really, if you think about it. And that is, again, as John was just telling you, testament to the size, the breadth of Hurricane Irma, not just strong, but very long, so that the range of hurricane force winds goes about 75 miles outside the eye. Tropical force winds about 100, 125 miles outside the eye, so the range is enormous, hence why Miami and Naples are getting battered equally. But what about who comes next? Drew Griffin is just a little ways up north from us here on this West Coast. You've been dealing with the shelter system. This is that heavier band that Chad was telling us about. It definitely is picking up. It is a wall of water coming sideways. It is like standing in a car wash. And I know that because I've actually done that before, Drew. So what is it like where you are right now? We lost power here. Is your shelter back up and running? Did they get power up?
No, the power is not up. We're still out, and we're still getting those heavy bands, which are just going to increase like they've been for Berman, like they've been for you, and we're getting it up here. And if you look, if you're at a dry place and look at a map of Florida and see where all of us are, just the incredible strength of this storm and the breadth of this storm is wild. We're blocked by a large hotel, so we're in the block zone, but these trees are just on the other side, and you can see the trees, the street signs, and when we pan over, you'll see these tall light posts. Those are light posts where they've dropped the lights all the way down to the ground here in Florida to protect them from the wind, but that light is just wobbling now in the wind. I'm sure it can take that kind of wind it's designed to, but it gives you a sense of the strength of the wind that is coming through here. I know it's bad there. I know it's bad in Miami. It is also bad here, and it's bad, I think, remarkably, Chris, all at the same time. Irma is just churning through all of southeast and southwest Florida as it makes its way up now towards Tampa. Chris?
All right, Drew, I'm going to stick with you for a second, but we just got word that the president, I believe, control room, correct me if I'm getting it wrong, my IFB isn't perfect, what I'm hearing isn't perfect, that President Trump has been talking about the storm. That media is coming in. When we get it, we will bring it to you. Obviously, he is monitoring the best situation, but as you can see, this has just turned into a maelstrom here in Naples. I mean, this water is coming down sideways. The wind gusts have gotten really intense here, Drew, and it's not just the intensity, it's the duration. It doesn't end. As Chad was telling John Berman, hopefully they're in the fourth quarter, but these quarters are hours long, and it's got to be raising the level of anxiety of the people up in that shelter. What are you seeing in terms of how they're coming together and how they're processing what's about to come their way?
Well, everybody's just trying to stick together, trying to share food. We've seen a lot of people here. They're all in the same boat, right? Nothing brings people together like terrible tragedy. So they're all trying to work with each other. We are currently at a hotel which is just filled with evacuees. And the power is out, has been out. People are congregating in the lobby. Power to cell phones is starting to run dry on some of these folks. So they're losing all their communication. And what you see a lot more of is the social interaction where people are trying to share news with each other. Hey, did you listen to a radio? Did you hear anything? Did you get a call out? What did they say? So you're in that phase when people are they're starting to realize they are going to survive this storm together and alone until it's over with. It's basically with a hunker down philosophy, right? But it's still this incredible wind. Not many people venturing out, that is for sure.
That's for damn sure, Drew. People would have to be really just off it to want to go outside right now. Honestly, I don't know how they physically could do it, even if they wanted to for some nuts reason. Here where we're standing right now on this balcony, it's like a little micro analogy of what this entire area is going to deal with. We're flooding on our balcony right now just because of debris. You don't have to show it to them, Dave, but just little twigs and stuff that are coming down from the trees are blocking the drains. So the water fills up so quickly. Imagine that magnified exponentially for the sewer system here, which already is a very low water table, right? I mean, it's very shallow because the water table is very high, so it floods very easily. Just this rain alone would have completely overwhelmed it. And still, we're waiting on the storm surge. And these gusts are the real deal. Ed Lavandera is at ground level. We're up about 25 feet. And Ed, I got to tell you, it is like a sandblasting to the face. What is it like down where you are? And really, it's not about the levity, it's about the concern for the longevity. How long can Naples take this kind of pounding? And then when that storm surge comes in, then what? What are you seeing?
Chris, this is unbelievable. If we can make our way this way across the shot here, kind of give you a look. Oh, man. The visibility is completely cut off. That building structure that we just were able to show you here a little while ago is no more than 100 yards away from us, and I can barely see it anymore. The water's pulling up here on the street. The lack of visibility that has just disappeared on us here in the last few minutes is absolutely stunning. The fact that we can't even see a building anymore that was just no more than 100 yards away from us now has just been really stunning. Obviously, now lightening up a smidge. Jerry, I don't know if I can get you to come back around this way. This is a Cambier Park, which is the area just back to where we are. Ooh, I'm going to get out of the way here. Chris, if you can still hear me, needed to jump out of that. That's just
I hear
way
you,
too
Ed.
crazy.
Keep going.
But looking back toward that building, you can see it's basically a outdoor concert venue with that soft tarp on it, and that is a Cambier Park here in downtown Naples. And that roof, that structure there continues to hold. I thought for sure that tarp would come flying off and ripping to shreds here as these winds have intensified, and now you can kind of see that structure again a little bit. But as we were starting to talk, I couldn't even see it. Just absolutely stunning, the amount of rain and the way it was whipping through here. And then if you look down here on the ground, you can see just how much the water is starting to pool up on the ground. Definitely, covering my feet here. That's that storm surge concern. We feel like we're in a really good spot as far as storm surge and the water rising in the area. We're halfway between the Gulf side and the river that cuts along the eastern side of town. But it is that storm surge that's going to continue to push its way north and cause a lot of flooding, that 10 to 15 foot storm surge that was expected in this. But it is the back half of that storm as it brings the water in from the Gulf side and pushes it back here toward the east that is going to be of major concern. But you can just see how little visibility we have here at this point, and the dramatic nature here as the eye of this storm, Hurricane Irma, which just made landfall in Marco Island. This is about 20 miles south of where we are, and the eye of that storm coming directly to where we are right now. And it is that edge, being close to the eye of that storm, which brings you the most intense part of these hurricanes, and that's what we are approaching here right now, Chris.
All right, Ed, now back up to where we are. There's no question it's going to be a little bit more intense because of the elevation, but this is it now. I mean, these are hurricane force winds. There's no question about it. This just came over. We know that the hurricane made landfall not far south from here not long ago. Chad Myers said that we were going to get an intensification, and he was exactly right. I mean, we're seeing it now. The visibility is almost gone. I don't even know what I'm hearing right now, but we're having some kind of weird sound come from around the corner, but it's not unusual. Things start to break free, and you start to hear the wind flying through pieces of metal and stuff. But the visibility has been cut down to maybe 200 feet, maybe. And these gusts have to be well in excess of a general hurricane force gust. And you're seeing the structures. They're not going to be able to take it. You can just see these trees are starting to split. And you're seeing that over time, this is going to create problems that they're going to have to deal with for a long time here. I mean, just look at this. This is water that's coming sideways here. Chad Myers, I know you're listening along with me. On the balcony where we're standing, as like a little microcosm of what we're dealing with here, there's just the little leaves and stuff from the flooding, from the rain, from the air, from the wind, has clogged up, so it's flooding the whole balcony, and that's what's happening to the roads. That's what's happening to the sewer system. And when that storm surge comes on top of it, what can they expect here in Naples, especially if they have hours of this to go?
They truly do have hours to go, and you have not seen the worst yet. I know that might be impossible to believe, but the real part of the eye wall that's going to go over Naples that has already affected Marco Island with a wind of 130 miles per hour is still coming. What you've received there is about 105 to 110, gusting back and forth. But you still have another possible 20 miles per hour added to that event. And you can see it appears to me like what all of the rain pellets or the rain drops are just broken up into spray. It's no longer a rain event. It is a misting, blowing event. So what Chris is going to go through, and if you are and stuck it out in Naples, this is what they already received in Marco Island. Marco, you're in the middle of the eye. Your wind is 0, and the wind's about to come from the other direction at the same speed that you already saw. So Chris, I'm so glad you kept the pictures up, but I'm also concerned about the security of our forces out there. Please make sure everybody's away. I don't need you standing out there in the rain. I don't need you being hit by a palm tree or a frond or whatever, because it's happened to me before, as Anderson and I stood at Indian Atlantic Beach and just got pelted with things. The pictures are enough. The pictures tell the story. As the wind continues to go up from here another 20 miles per hour, I'm suspecting that we don't get any visibility whatsoever, and that we will not even be able to see that building across the street. Oh, there you go. What I've seen before behind you was a crane. I will be interested to see what that crane looks like when it finally stops.
Well, you know, she's okay, Chad, and we're lucky that this crane isn't as high elevation as the ones that you have down in Miami. And basically, she's working as like a huge weather vane. We can't see her right now, but she's just pointing in the wind direction. And the one reason that, you know, there's a benefit for us to be here is that when this is done, as you know, we're going to go out with search and rescue, and we're going to volunteer our time, and we're not working. Oh, there are those gusts you're talking about. And it's going to be good to know where the worst of it seems to be going, because that's where we're going to need to go and check and see who was there and see who made it through and how everything is in those areas. So there is a benefit to that, but I have to tell you, if this is going to be hours long, there's going to be a heck of a lot of work to do here, because as Chad was saying, this is a real beating. When you look at it, all right, the branches are starting to come off this tree next to us. It was only a matter of time. She's starting to let go, fellas. That big tree around the corner, that's going to be a problem here in terms of road clearing. This is one of the main thoroughfares. They're going to have to get that out of the way in order to do any kind of search and rescue. The producers are working here on trying to clear the drains because it's literally filling up with water. It's in no way a serious situation, but we're just trying to help the hotel out and keep the debris away from the drains so some of this water can seep through, because as the expression goes, water always wins. It's always going to find a way where it wants to go. You know, it's a problem with something inconsequential like this, and it's really meaningful when it comes to the storm surge. The storm surge is going to come up. It's going to come up these streets. It's going to go into these homes. It's going to flood them. It's going to own them, and it's going to stay there. And it's going to take time because it's so hard for it to reabsorb. And that's one of the big problems. And you put all these different components together, and then you mix them with the most dangerous component, which is time. And that's what Chad's been telling us about as a function of the size of this storm, the length of this storm, the miles with which you will have these bands of energy with this storm. That's time, that's duration. On top of it, the speed of it. Luckily, it's sped up a little bit. It's moving through these areas more quickly. That's good, because the longer it stays, the more of a price that you're going to pay. At Lavandera, you're down on street level. Are you seeing these trees break up the way we are up here? How is it by you?
We're surrounded by trees, and obviously this outdoor concert venue with a white plastic tarp that you're keeping a close eye on. I've been in storms before where I've seen rooftops and building structures like this just kind of rise up into the wind and shred into pieces, and once it gets into the air like that, that becomes just a dangerous, deadly projectile. So our heads are on swivels as we look around and keep tabs on everything. The problem here now, we're kind of underneath the shelter because the wind is just too dangerous, and it's really the lack of visibility. We can barely see 100 yards in either direction, and obviously with the winds blowing at this speed, if there is debris flying through the air, I don't want to be out in the middle of that and get caught upside the head by some flying branch or anything like that. So we are tucked away behind the wall as the wind blows here.
Yeah, stay where you are. Stay where you are right now, because some of these big trees that are surrounding this hotel, I don't know if they're going to make it. They're starting to cleave out. That's why I just grabbed the producer and put it back inside. Because look, the palm tree is an extraordinary piece of vegetation. There's no question about it. They're built to bend. But there are a lot of trees here that aren't that. and they're starting to split and they're starting to fail under the strain on them. And we've been watching it. And the concern is that these trees are going to go into the structures across. And while they may not look physically impressive to you, we're talking about thousands and thousands of pounds, and even more of that in force if they do fall into those buildings. Some of them have storm shutters, some of them do not. The wind is picked up by a significant factor here from what it was just a little while ago. So we've been watching this to make sure that the way those go is going to make a big difference. We're safe where we are here in terms of what might come on us. It may not look that way, but it is, otherwise I wouldn't be here. But these gusts, this is intense, what is coming down these corridors right now. And you can see it behind me. And Chad was right, the pictures tell the story. But where this wind goes and where it takes all this debris, those are the areas that are going to need the most help. And so it's important to cite it as it's happening. And we've seen this before in hurricanes where, you know, you're going to follow your debris field and it's going to take you to the trouble, Chad. And now as we're watching these trees break up, you know, if the trees go, other things are going to go. And it's remarkable, more things have not. I guess the hope right now, Chad, if you can speak to this, is that this is going to last a long time, but hopefully not with this intensity. But what can you tell us?
This intensity will last for another 20 minutes. And this is it. This is the middle of the northern part of the eye wall. This is as bad as it gets. I mean, there may be another 5 miles an hour in here somewhere. But one shingle just came off, and then 1 minute later, 2 more came off, and then another minute, 3 more come off, and then by the time you're in this for 15 minutes, the entire eastern side of your home doesn't have a roof left. And that's it. And then you're talking about the duration. It's not just one little gust from an EF2 tornado that comes and goes, and you go pick everything up. This is the long-term event that is a northern eye wall. And if we can just come back to the map for a minute. I know how serious it is here in your eye, in your northern eye wall. But Chris, in the middle of Marco Island, right here, it is not raining. The signature that you see there are birds trapped inside the eye. It happens all the time. When the eye in the storm finally stops, the birds land and they're fine. So you ask, where do the birds go in a hurricane? They go in the eye, because they know better. Chris, 20 more minutes, just like this.
Well, Chad, as you might imagine, Ed and I can't get into the eye, brother.
No, not yet.
So we're just trying to stay out of the way. We're trying to stay out of the way of these gusts while doing the best that we can to just keep an eye on the situation so that, you know, once it passes, we know where to go. I mean, I don't have to tell you, you've been doing the job at such a high level for such a long time, but, you know, you serve different functions. One is to be the eyes and the ears for the audience on the ground in a situation like this, again, to arrest the sense of curiosity. But also, once the first responders have to kick in and do their job, very often we're telling them where things happened from our own observations. And this is certainly going to size up to one of those situations because they can't get out right now. They've had to hunker down. Ed Lavandera is down below me. We're a team on this. He's been watching equal intensity from a different perspective down on the ground. And Ed, let me know when you can come back to me in terms of what you're seeing with the flooding and whether it's making an appreciable difference to these surrounding buildings by us. This is somewhat of a commercial area where we are now. There are residences as you get in the 4, 5, 6 blocks away where we are. As you get closer into the water, there are residences along the water. We don't give a damn about property in a situation like this. We're about protecting life, and that's what all the precautions were about. But you've got mega mansions down there. The governor has one. We're talking $10, $15 million homes that were built really close to the water, and as beautiful as that is, it's equally dangerous. Another huge gust coming down here right now. Remarkable that this tree is standing, and I'm watching it split in real time. but it's getting there. Ed, what are you seeing down where you are? Let me step out of this.
Chris, I'm going to take a quick little step out. Oh, man. A quick little step out here so you can get a sense of just how quickly the water is moving through here on the street. This is the most severe gust that's pushing through. You can see the water. You can't even see 50 yards anymore to our right. The amount of water that's being pushed along the street and filling up here, and we're in we understand one of the higher areas here in downtown Naples. The water in other parts of the neighborhoods that we were able to survey this morning and throughout the day yesterday have to be an incredibly dangerous situation. The good news, as we've reported over the last day, is that many of the people here in Naples evacuated this area. We didn't see but a handful of people out and about throughout the day yesterday. So that is a good sign, because what is left behind, as you mentioned, it's just property. And the intensity of it and the flooding in this situation, remember, this part of Naples is surrounded by water on all sides. So it's not just the Gulf waters that are going to be of concern. It's going to be the river to the side, to the east side of town here, as well as the canals and the homes through there. All of that water getting pushed up. This is just one little spot as you look down here on the street in downtown Naples, just how quickly the water can pool up in various areas. So you can imagine in some of the lower lying areas just how horrible the flooding situation is going to be. We continue to look here off to our east to make sure we're well protected here. Everything structurally, from what I can tell, seems to be holding on quite right, but I have never experienced the intensity of this kind of hurricane with the winds cutting down visibility the way it has, which obviously makes the situation even that much more disconcerting. But it is incredibly intense here as we approach and get closer to the eye of this storm, making and passing over Naples here. But it is quickly going to turn from a wind and structural story to this flooding story. Here comes another gust. Time out. Whoa.
Can you see this, Dave? All right, so now we're getting it in full effect up here, Dave. Ed, it's not slowing down anymore. So this has to be what Chad was talking about, where it just keeps coming. Just keep coming. It just looks like some type of sideways cyclone that's coming down here with these gusts. And I'll tell you, Ed, Lavandera, me, we're not going to move that easily in a storm. We're both bigger guys, and this could easily knock you off your feet. But I'll tell you what, it's such an easier task to be here than so many of the people who are with this storm, with their families, with young kids, and they're inside, and they have to be praying to God that this just leaves them untouched and they get past. And that's the biggest concern. You know, for us right now, we're fine. You know, this is a very dramatic picture, as Chad said, and it's accurate picture. It's true. But your heart has to go out to the families. You're watching this coverage. If you're not in Florida, if you are in Florida, God bless you, and we hope that everybody's okay and you're safe and you have the supplies you need. This will pass. It's going to take longer than usual, but it will pass. But if you're watching this from somewhere else, just imagine, put yourself in the place of these families that are down here, and we'll see what their needs are afterwards. But this is something that they're going to remember for a really long time. And hopefully there is a measure, I hope, of gross inaccuracy in terms of what the net effect of this storm will be. I hope that it is more drama than it is impact, and that the places that have been touched, from the Caribbean now up into Florida, and what happens in states north, west, and a little bit east of here, winds up being less than we expect. But for now, that big part has passed. There's been a little bit of an alleviation. It's gusting that way now, but it's not as sustained as it was. There was about 5 minutes there where it just wasn't letting up And the good news is, this one big patch of trees that I've been watching here that I was really worried about going in to the apartment building across, it hasn't happened. Now, I know Chad Myers is about to jump in my ear and say, don't count your chickens. I understand, but you take good results where you find them in a situation like this. And so far, the integrity of these big trees, these 200-foot trees, Chad, so far, I've been seeing some separation in them, not the palms. You know what I'm talking about, these other old growth trees. They've been splitting, but they haven't failed yet. They haven't collapsed yet. And if they can make it through this phase, maybe we'll get lucky here. But I have to tell you, Ed Lavender is a pro, as you know, Chad. He's been in a lot of these. I've been in many, but less than he, to be sure, and you, to be sure. But there is something unique about what we're getting hit with right now. Maybe you can put some words and some science to it for us.
Well, the only word I have, Chris, is eye wall. You are in the northern eye wall. You are going to, within the next 10, 15 minutes, be inside the eye. You may be able to look up and see the sky with not a cloud in it, and then be waiting for another hour or 20 minutes and get the wind from the other direction. And that's many times where a lot of the damage comes from, because the trees have already bent one way, and then all of a sudden they have to bend the other way as well. This is as bad as this storm has been of Sugar Land. This is what the people of Cudjoe Key, this is what the people of Big Coppet, Big Pine this morning, this is what they felt as this storm went straight over the lower Keys. It stayed offshore. It gained a little strength, but not much. And then it made landfall at Marco Island about 30 minutes ago. The eye wall doing 130 miles per hour when it hit Marco. And I bet you just had 130. Nothing to boast about, but that storm is still very strong, not losing any intensity really whatsoever.
So then it just comes down to duration. Now tell me this, when does the storm surge component kick in, and what do we look for there?
The storm surge comes in after the center of the eye moves by, and the bubble of water moves under the eye itself and pushes onto land. Now this is opposite of what we expect when an eye makes landfall on an east coast. This is a west coast. So the west coast now has the no water on the north and the water slam storm surge on the south side of the eye. Water's been pulled out of Tampa Bay, pulled out of Port Charlotte, and all the like up to the north. And in 20 minutes, when the eye goes by you, the eye wall, you're going to get eye, and then you're going to get the other side that Marco Island is already getting. Marco getting the storm surge flooding, and we are seeing that flash flood emergency for Marco Island proper. 10 to 15 foot surge on top of places that were completely dry. Honestly, the ocean bottom was exposed. 4 feet or so, the ocean bottom was exposed. You could see this. You could see the sand. You could see the fish. You could see the coral. You could see the sponge. And now, all of a sudden, that's going to be covered up with 10 to 15 feet of water. Chris, I am seeing you. Can you hear me, and can you go?
Oh, no, I have you. I was just testing out these hurricane specs that you told me not to waste the money on. You were right. So, Chad, what do we do when that storm surge comes in? What's the best way to help? What is going to be the list of immediate needs for the people there? And, you know, God willing, they can hear us. You know, we're running on battery power here. The hotel's out. All the lights are out in the surrounding area. In fact, I don't see anything lit up. They had kept the lights on here. I don't see them anymore. For people who are there and hopefully hunkered down.
Yeah,
go ahead.
What happens here on Marco and likely other islands, really city islands that are on up the coast, like Punta Gorda, that would have an awful lot of homes on canals, and many of those homes are less than 3 to 5 feet above the canal on a regular day. Now, all of a sudden, there will be 5 or 10 feet of water on top of their grass, and so therefore in their home. And this surge with the push of the water, the push of the wind, think of this water moving at 60 or 70 miles per hour, being pushed along by winds that are 120 miles per hour. That water will knock things down a lot quicker than the wind will knock things down. Water has so much more force. Now, to answer your first question, what do? You get Eddie Lavandera and that crew off the street, because that's where the water is going to go. You likely will be fine, second and third floor, but get everybody off the street. Chris, go ahead if you can hear me.
Chad, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can. I can see your pictures very well, Chris. So you can just start talking.
I can't hear anymore.
All right.
Let me go to Ed Lavandera and figure out what's going on. Ed, if you can hear me, pick up the coverage for me and let me know what you're seeing. We just had a huge gust here and it blew out my IFB. I don't hear anything. So go ahead and pick it up if you can.
No problem, Chris. We are down on the no problem, Chris. We're down on the street here in downtown Naples. Going to give you the continued sense of as this the eye of this hurricane gets closer and closer here to Naples. I've kind of tucked in behind a wall here to protect us from the worst of the wind. It's just too much. There's no visibility. If we can get to look down here on the street, the number of palm trees that are just blowing down the street, and that's obviously a major concern for us, because with such little visibility, you just can't stand out here in this. There's no reason to, and be able to see that flying at you. That can cause serious pain and damage. So as we stand here a little bit more than an hour, we have endured these kinds of wind, this kind of rain. We're still not quite at the eye of the storm here, which we anticipate will be coming much closer, and we will continue to monitor that. So it is a situation that is clearly deteriorating, and after more than an hour of enduring this, you really start to have to ask yourself, you know, we're in downtown Naples, and the situation here in the buildings and the structures that we're surrounded by are strong, and from everything that I can tell from our vantage point, of course, in these types of situations, you know, we'll be honest with everybody, it's limited. We do not have the ability right now to venture out into the city by any means and get a sense of how the rest of the structures are withstanding this storm. We can tell you what we see here around us. There is an outdoor concert venue here, and has a soft tarp over it. I've been watching that for the last 30-45 minutes. I'm actually amazed that that has not come peeling apart here with these winds that we've seen. I thought for sure that that would start unbuckling as it is tied down here. But what is just simply stunning is how little visibility. We're down to maybe 100 yards of visibility here, which makes this even more treacherous. And as we've approached this and endured this for more than the last hour, it really makes you wonder in the rest of the area, homes that are not as structurally sound as the areas in the buildings that you see here around me, really makes you wonder, can the homes, can the buildings, other buildings around this part of Naples and southwest Florida, can it continue to withstand this kind of intensity for as long as it has? And there's still more to come. So that's a real question and a concern that we have here at this point.
All right, Ed, I'll take it from you right now. I was a little overly optimistic in terms of the worst stuff being through. I was hoping that that's what that was before. But she's back. And it is a big blow that's coming through here. And again, as you were seeing down there at ground level, ooh, Chad, this is the real deal coming through here. But so far, this tree line is holding. And it's so important for these surrounding structures, Chad, in terms of what they can do to things. As you know, we know what happens when these big branches blow off with this kind of energy behind them. We've been seeing it about this way now for about, what, 35 minutes or so. And everywhere around us, it's the same. It's actually, it looks actually worse in areas that are a little bit west of us here. The trees that were there that I was using as markers before are gone. So Chad, what are you seeing on the radar in terms of where we are from that most severe band that went over the island not too long ago?
You are about 4 miles from where there is no more rainfall. So therefore the inner part of the eye wall, 4 miles away. Now, if we do the math at 12 miles per hour, you're still in this, or maybe something slightly less than this, for another 20 minutes. So it's that duration thing you talked about. How long are people going to be in this when they're in their homes in the dark? This is a completely different animal in the daylight. When you are in your home and you hear things go bumping and you have no idea because it's dark and you have no power and you don't have air conditioning and you don't really have any communication with any of the outside world because the cell tower's already gone down, that's when it truly is going to be a very difficult night for the people from Anna Marie, Sarasota into Tampa, because they are going to live this as well. Maybe a little bit less, maybe 115, because I think you just had 130.
All right, well, whatever it is, it is. But here's what I can tell you, Chad. As you know, we're all pros. We are in the cover of a hotel. The crew is good. Photojournalist is good. I'm good. Ed and I are built for this. It's not easy, but I'll tell you what, it's a hell of a lot easier for us than it is for the people that Chad was just talking about. God forbid you're with your family and you're having to live through something like this. Our hearts, our thoughts are with those people. It's a big reason that we do this coverage. We will be here just as we saw with Harvey. There's going to be need. And we know that this community will come together. We saw it before the storm. It sounds trite, but it's true. The worst of Mother Nature brings out the best in human nature, and that's going to be needed here in Florida in big, big portions. And living through this part of it makes those of us who, God willing, won't be adversely affected by it, feel invested, interconnected to those who are going to be affected by it. Because, Ed, from where you are down there right now, this is going to be something where everybody's going to have to count their blessings after this one goes through. Where is it, where you are right now?
Okay.
How is it down there?
Hey, Chris, there's no question. Seconds after I tossed back to you just moments ago, heard a large crash about 15 yards off to my side. Part of the rooftop, these are the Spanish tiles of the rooftop that we're on, just came crashing down about 4 stories off the ground, crashed down on the ground around us. This is exactly what just landed on the ground around us. So, as I was mentioning, and as while we were talking, and the fortification and the structural soundness of the buildings that we're in, that we felt really good about where we're at. Not to say that it won't endure any kind of damage, but if these shingles and these tiles are coming off the roof here on these really strong buildings, you can imagine what it must be like in the neighborhoods and the areas surrounding, closest to where we are and closest to the wall of the eye of this hurricane. So a highly dangerous situation, as some of these tiles just flying off the roof, crashing down here on the ground next to us. And as we mentioned, you know, we're protected. We're tucked away underneath an area here, and that's why you see that on camera that we're not getting blown around as much. We are simply not just going to stand out there any longer as the wall in the eye of this hurricane approaches closer to where we are. But this is it. This is just landing on the ground, and you can imagine all the other kind of debris that is flying around out there as this storm makes its way toward us, Chris.
All right, bud, so we got to make it through this phase, and then we have to deal with what Chad was explaining earlier as the redistribution of the energy. When the wind comes around the other direction and brings that storm surge, then you get another phase of this. And you also get a different dynamic just in terms of the mechanics of what it does to the surrounding structures and foliage. Chad, weigh in on this if I get it wrong, but I remember it from you, which is everything that's been fighting to stay up in one way is now going to get hit at its weakest angle the other way.
Correct. When
the energy redistributes and the surge comes and the wind starts coming from another way. Accurate or no?
Absolutely accurate. And I think the other thing to talk about is how powerful water is. And if you get a surge of 10 to 15 feet in that area, homes will be lost. The building itself will be lost. Whereas a wind event, you can hide from it. You lose shingles. You may lose some roof, a sheet of plywood from your roof, but you won't lose your home. If you get hit by this storm surge that's still to come, that's when you lose things. Officially, I said 1:30. National Weather Service out of Naples Airport just had 131 18 minutes ago. You were in it. 131. That's, I hope, as bad as it gets. You're now beginning to get to a slightly inner core of the storm itself, and now slightly less in wind. And in 20 minutes, it may very well be calm.
Oh, from your lips to God's ears. When you take a look at the map, where are we in terms of that? Is that what you're showing everybody right now?
Yes, Naples Manor, which is about 3 miles or 4 miles south of you, is already in the eye. So they're in good shape. Golden Gate, you're getting hit. Honestly, this is one of the neighborhoods that's really getting slammed to your west. Probably still 131 for them. But Naples down to 115 to 110, and it is going down from here as we get you closer and closer to the eye. Now less than probably 15 minutes before you will see all the palm fronds just fall down to the ground, or just kind of limp down to the side of the tree, because the wind will go to near zero.
All right, so that's what we have coming our way, and that's good to know from those who are monitoring it. We know we have a lot of people in Florida who are watching us. We're thinking about you. We hope that you took the right precautions. We hope that you're still able to follow the coverage. If you see us able to be doing what we're doing, hopefully the structure that you're in is going to be just fine. And what we've been watching us around us, as dramatic as it is, hopefully it's not as dangerous as it is dramatic. So far, this tree line is holding here, and these buildings are still protected that are around us. Less so on the other side. And you're seeing things blow around in the air here, a little bit of Wizard of Oz style, but they're fairly small projectiles at this point, not the kinds of things that I've seen do damage in the past. That's a good sign as well. But again, there is no cause for false optimism. We'll have to see what happens on the backside of this storm and with the storm surge. As Chad has been coaching us all along, the wind is dramatic. There's no question about that. There's a danger component to it. But it is water that kills. It's drowning that takes people's lives in hurricanes. And storm surge is not just powerful, but it's lasting. So we're going to have to see that. And again, I keep going back to timing, Chad, because especially when you're in it, that's just your natural reaction to it from an endurance standpoint, is how much longer, how much longer. And the scary part is, at least from the perspective on the ground, is how much longer there is. I mean, watching John and those correspondents, you know, it's a long time, and things just only have so much tolerance, whether it's a structure or a vehicle or even an infrastructure system of your roadways and your sewage. And I don't mean that just from some planning perspective. I'm saying backup of sewage, homes not being able to have livable conditions, you know, what they call habitability. I mean, that's what all this is about. It's about what all of this does to their lifestyle, Chad, and it's your perspective, your take on it so far, that you're getting why the governor was so conscientious about saying we're talking about weeks here. We're talking about commitment from the federal government for weeks and months, and in the billions in terms of what they estimated going into this. Do you think they're going to wind up being justified in what they thought going into it?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt, this storm had the punch when it was over Cuba at 160 miles per hour. And to the people of northern Cuba, we are internally grateful. What happened to your country is a shame. It was the damage that created the storm to go from 160 to 130. It was a true remarkable reduction in power that our country didn't have to take. And as it's now moving over Key Largo and into the Keys and then into Collier County, all of a sudden we had a survivable storm where 160 to 165 in some places with wind speeds there would not have been survivable. So you are now getting into a much better place. Here in Chris, you're going to get into the winds dropping off rapidly to maybe 35 or 45 miles per hour, and that's the good news. But the rest of the story is that we're going from here to Pelican Bay to Naples Park to Bonita Springs, heading up the coast with the same event that you just had there. I have a question for you if you can hear me. I know the wind's going down a little bit. I don't know if you had a chance to do any ground truth, but the road that we see below you, how many feet is that above sea level?
All right, hey Chad, water's coming up this street here. I don't know if you can see it. Dave, show it to him. This just like is coming out of nowhere. All of a sudden this street is flooded. Do you see it?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, do you think that this is just flooding and the sewer system letting go?
No, I believe that this is the bubble of water that you're about to see as the storm surge makes its way into Marco Island at Naples, Golden Gate, Pelican Bay. This is the real deal. This is the water.
Man, this came out of nowhere, Chad.
Yes, yes, it is. Yes, it did.
I mean, literally, we have 1.5 feet of standing water here in literally no time flat. My producer just told me to turn around. I just turned around. I saw the crane. I was going to say, good news, we see the crane again. And I turned back around, and literally, we're surrounded by water here. And I don't mean that it's not dangerous, but it's a lot of water really fast. And what does this mean? And obviously, it's deeper as you get closer, right?
Sure, it'll be deeper as you get closer to the Gulf of Mexico. There's a little barrier there from the Gulf of Mexico spilling over to Naples into Marco Island, but that barrier is going to be easily breached, and the water will be right there into downtown Naples. I was just curious as to how many feet above sea level that road was. I'm not able to do that right now standing here at the weather board, but I'm thinking not 10 feet above sea level, not more than that.
All right, and give me a little sense of timing again. And Chad, I apologize, but again, I just feel like so much of it is about duration and tolerance. What are we looking at? So now, as this eye goes by, give me my next time component so that the people who are in parts north get a sense of proportion in terms of, what kinds of waves they can look for.
We'll take a look at the palm trees and the palm fronds barely now moving, slowing down. And in the eye itself, the skies will begin to lighten and brighten, and then all of a sudden the bubble of water that has been following along with this storm all the way through the Caribbean. We saw pictures, and if you didn't, they are amazing, in the Bahamas where the water was gone from the islands. And people were saying, I've never seen this before. How did this ever happen? Where did the water go? The water went with the hurricane. It did have that bubble of water, the surge water, that's going to come in now. And if you think a freshwater flood is bad, a saltwater flood is even worse for homes and businesses and the people that have to clean up after that saltwater flood, and that's what's on its way. The surge flood. A flash flood emergency is still in effect for Collier County. That means flash flooding is going to occur or is occurring, and it will be life-threatening. That's where we are now. I don't know, because the slow speed of the storm, only 12 miles per hour, how quickly that water will be 5 or 10 or 15 feet high, but it will be less than a half hour, Chris, I think.
All right, and look, and that's good to hear, because I'm just trying to weigh different factors. All right, what's the main considerations, the windows that we're looking at is when can the first responders get out? They're going to need winds that die down, and not just during the eye, right, because they're all sophisticated enough to know what you're telling us right now. And it just makes me wonder, if we're seeing this here, what is the situation for the people if they're still in homes as we get down there towards where that surge is much closer to that 10 to 15 feet that you were talking about. Control room, do we have Ed Lavandera? Is he down there? I wonder what the water is looking like for him on the ground. Do we have him, Ed?
Yeah, I'm here, Chris. Can you hear me? We're adjusting the camera here a second. The winds have settled down a little bit, so that gives us a little bit of opportunity to adjust and give a little bit better perspective. That was an unreal hour and a half, I suspect, of intensity that we've seen here down on the streets of downtown Naples. Now the winds have died down enough where we can kind of show you a little bit of what we experienced here. Look at all the, that's to be expected, those tree limbs there. This is part of the tiles that came flying off the roof of the building that we're in there. And now we've gotten a little bit better view, and you can really start to see a little bit of the tree damage is to be expected. as soon as all of this passes through, and now it's starting to kick up again. Thought we had a little bit of a break there to give you a little bit better perspective, but that's what we're facing there. Obviously, the tree damage is going to be unbelievably extensive through Naples. That's to be expected. The damage to the rest of the infrastructure, we're not in a position to really gauge here at this point. We're just in the process of trying to withstand and endure what this hurricane is bringing here to Southwest Florida. So, but now the visibility is back, which is stunning, because now we can see several more 100 yards through the trees here that we've been providing you the live picture from, and you can see that the floodwaters and the amount of water that is collected and pocketed up in various parts of the street. That's going to be even worse on the backside of this storm as the storm surge starts coming in from the Gulf side. And what you've seen there along that main street that you're on is extensive as well, and that's going to be even worse in some of the more lower lying areas. The area we're in, we picked obviously because it sat up a little bit higher here in the city, but in those parts where it's much more lower lying, and as soon as we can get to those areas in the hours ahead, be able to report a little bit more extensively and give people a better picture of what has occurred here. But the intensity of that is just unreal, and it is just unbelievable to describe what we have endured here for nearly 2 hours, Chris.
All right, hey Ed, they're telling us that the eye is passing over. It doesn't feel like it. Chad, I thought the eye was supposed to be like this piece of calm where you look up and you see the sky or whatever it is. We're still getting hit here. In fact, I want Dave to sneak out if he can, now that it's not as nasty. I want to show them the storm surge. And hey Ed, just get in my ear real quick and tell me, how far is the hotel from the marina again? I forget from when I was walking down there this morning. Was it like 8 blocks? Just to give a sense of proportion of how much water we have.
There's two different bodies. Yeah, I can hear you, Chris. There's two different bodies of water that we have to keep tabs on. On the west side of us, we have the Gulf of Mexico. We're probably about a good 8 blocks from that. That's that direction. If you look back over here toward the east, about a mile or so is where that marina is and where the river that comes in on the east side of Naples. And that is going to be the area of real concern, because that storm surge gets pushed back in there, and then that starts kind of fanning its way out through the neighborhoods. And so that marina is about a mile away.
All right, Ed, I got you. Let me get Dave out here, the PJ, our photojournalist, part of the team here, just to try and get you down this street. Big man, let's come over this way and show them down the street. Because if we're 8 blocks away, you go past me, Dave, and show them, yeah, and get down that street. So we're 8 blocks away. So Chad, just to give you some perspective on this, all right? Here's 8 blocks away, and this is about, you look at the yellow curb here at 5th Avenue South and Park Street, and you're at about 8 inches to 10 inches of water, okay, right here. And as you can see, the buildings are fine. That part of the integrities are right. You know, you got your typical debris here from that gusting. But when you look down the street, you see that there's been breach there, at least on one side of the street. The water has gotten into the buildings, and it's got to be well over a foot or so deep, and that's still 6.5, 7 blocks from the marina. So how does that fill in the blanks for you?
What that is freshwater flooding. That is the rain that came down and went into the lowest part of that city, and that is all fresh water. That has no salinity content in it whatsoever, because the water that is from the salinity from the ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, has not truly arrived yet. We've been watching the quick rise from the tidal gauges in Naples. A brand new flash flood emergency for Naples just issued about 5 minutes ago, and so the water is still at the mean sea level right now, but it is quickly rising, and it will rise 10 to 15 feet. I mean, this is almost waiting for a tsunami, although it won't be a tidal wave. It'll be a surge where one wave that comes up that street, if you're at the right level. I don't know what your elevation is there. But if you are at any elevation that is, let's say, 5 feet above sea level, you will see 5 feet or 10 feet on top of that. The one wave will come in. It'll be kind of a wash, like a wave without a crest or a curl. And then that will stay. And then the next wave will come in, and the first one won't go away like it usually does at the seashore. The next wave's going to come in, and it won't go away. And then the next wave's going to come in, and it won't go away. And this is not what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do not want to be out with your dog
Chad,
when the water's coming up.
So, yeah, no, Chad, he's got his three-legged dog. He says he's lucky. Hold on. Hey! Hey, pal! He's walking his dog. We saw him last night. I see you're out with the dog again. You got to get back inside, pal. We got the backside of the storm still to come. The surge isn't here yet. Please get back in. I'll come find you after. All right, now most of the people here, Chad, there's a lot of media. The good news is, again, they believe that most of who needed to evacuate did. We saw that local last night. Nice guy, three-legged dog. You know, he's one of these salty types who's been here for a long time, says he knows storms, he knows what to worry about and what not to. But, you know, he's probably thinking what I was, Chad, which is, all right, so here's that surge they were telling us about. Wasn't as bad. But you're saying we haven't even seen it yet, that this is just like a little bit. This is just a little bit of an advantage. This is just a little bit of a runway for this surge. Like, it can just follow this water. Isn't that going to make it easier for the surge to penetrate if there's already, you know, if it's already liquid all the way up the road?
Yes, absolutely, no question. This now ground is already saturated. Not that it was going to soak in at all anyway, but the surge coming in from the ocean will even be quicker because we'll see this rain that is now going to mix with the salt water just continue to make the flood even worse.
Interrupt you for 1 second?
Go ahead.
Chad.
Go.
Do me a favor. Keep talking people through about what's going to happen next. I'm going to go down to the street level so we can figure out, you know, what this means, and I can get a better set of eyes for you on the road. So Dave's going to keep giving you the shot. I'll be out of it for a second, so just keep talking. Don't worry. I'll be right back in a minute, okay?
Fair enough, sir. Okay, so here's what I would like to show you of anyone who's still in Naples. We'll come back to the weather wall here on camera 1. All of a sudden, the spike from the Naples tidal gauge is here. The spike that we anticipated for the entire day has now arrived. It's because the eye wall itself has gone by. All of the forces of the wind that pushing the water out, all those forces are now gone. And so therefore, the eye itself will begin to bring the water back up. And when you get on the back side of the eye, that's when the water is going to spike. I guess we cannot get this shot right now, but I will get it to you. I promise, because it's an impressive spike in the tidal gauge right here at Naples. We will get to this right after this break.
If you're 50 or over, what comes to mind when you think about healthcare? Understanding your options? Or if you're getting the care you need? At AARPadvantages.com, you can find helpful information about healthcare options, leaving you more time to think about more important things, like not having to think about healthcare at all. Surround yourself with healthy advantages at AARPadvantages.com/health.
Introducing the new $1,000 a day for life prize from Publishers Clearinghouse. $1,000 a day, every day, for life.
Shut up!
Go to PCH.com and enter now. October 13th, you can win $1,000 a day for life.
Depends Silhouette Fleece feature a comfortable, sleek fit.
As a dancer, I've learned you can't have any doubts, because looking good on stage is one thing, but real confidence comes from feeling good out there.
Get a free sample at Depend.com.
Ever wonder why Europeans seem to speak so many languages? Maybe it's because we rely on old ways of learning, and they rely on Babbel, the #1 selling language learning app in Europe. Babbel's award-winning interactive technology gets you speaking right away, and best of all, remembering what you've learned.
When I started using Babbel, I really got into it.
You're able to retain all this information and remember what you learn without struggling to learn it.
Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons let you learn on the go. Now, you can try Babbel free. In just weeks, you'll have the conversational skills you want to use anywhere. In business meetings, on vacation, with the ones you love.
It's not hard to learn a language if you have the right program.
It improved my accent 1,000%.
The way that it's taught, it really sticks with you.
It's so user-friendly. I love it.
Try Babbel free today. Go to Babbel.com or download the app and see why Babbel is the #1 selling language learning app in Europe.
T-Mobile's Unlimited now includes Netflix on Us. That's right, Netflix on Us. Get 4 unlimited lines for just $40 each, taxes and fees included. And now, Netflix included. So go ahead, binge on Us. Another reason why T-Mobile is America's best unlimited network.
Hey, you ever talk to anybody about your money?
Yeah, I got some financial guidance a while ago.
How'd that go?
He kept spelling my name with an I.
But it's Brian with a Y.
Yeah, since birth.
That drives me crazy.
Yes.
It's on all your email.
Yes.
They should know this.
Yeah. The guy was my brother-in-law.
That's ridiculous. Well, I happen to know some people.
Do they listen?
What? They're amazing listeners.
Nice.
Guidance from professionals who take their time to get to know you.
I am totally blind, and Non-24 can throw my days and nights out of sync, keeping me from the things I love to do. Talk to your doctor and call 844-214-2424.
Dental professionals recommend using an electric toothbrush. For an exceptionally fresh feeling, choose Philips Sonicare Diamond Clean. Hear the difference versus Oral-B? In a recently published clinical study, Philips Sonicare Diamond Clean outperforms Oral-B 7000, removing up to 82% more plaque and improving gum health up to 70% more. It's sonic technology cleaning deep between teeth. From the most recommended sonic toothbrush brand by dental professionals. Switch to Philips Sonicare today. Philips Sonicare. Save when you buy now.
It's time to pick a used car.
I really don't want to get ripped off.
Just start at Carfax.
Yeah, show me the Carfax.
Get the most accurate price based on a car's history.
Look at all the great deals.
Start your used car search at the all-new Carfax.com. Start at Carfax.
Yeah, show me the Carfax.
Get the most accurate price based on a car's
All right, we come down now into the street in Naples. We just had a hell of a time with Hurricane Irma. She came through getting some numbers controlled. Let me know if I got them right.